Shut up and sit down.
We're recording.
Where's the button?
I found it.
Okay.
All right, what's up, party peeps? Jimmy Rhodes, your local neighborhood friendly whatever guy sitting here. It's episode 4 of Sorry About Your Feelings. Tonight, my guest is Joseph Evans. I've actually known him for about a year or so.
That, yeah.
Maybe a little longer. He is running for Congressional District 1 in the state of Idaho here. We live in Boise as a Libertarian candidate. So what's up, Joe? Good to see you.
Hey, thanks a lot for inviting me to your safe space here, Jimmy.
Yeah. Oh, you've heard about the safe space.
The safe space, absolutely.
Awesome.
No, but yeah, looking forward to the conversation tonight.
Me too.
Good stuff.
Yeah, totally. So before we kind of get started with my main interest in having you here was I'm really interested in your platform.
Right.
And the inner workings of a political campaign, like right from the horse's mouth, if you will.
Right, absolutely.
That's fascinating to me. And so we banter back a lot on Facebook and whatnot, and we see things way differently, which is awesome.
Oh, yeah.
I totally encourage that with people. So a little background on you. You're former Army,
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
Well, how long were you in and whatnot?
I was in for about 19 years.
Oh, wow, okay.
Yeah. So, I joined back in 1994, right after issues with Somalia, Mogadishu.
Black Hawk Down?
Yeah. And matter of fact, that was part of the big thing that brought me down was, there was an awful lot of news about what was going on with the Army Rangers, Black Hawk Down, the things that were going on in Somalia. And, this was one of those humanitarian missions, one of those things, hey, I can become an elite military operator, go out and do great things for the world and, make the world a safe place for everybody.
Right.
Yeah. And so back in 94, I went in, sat down, talked with a recruiter and said, you know what, I want to be an Army Ranger. So they set me up with an unassigned Ranger contract. I found my way in, actually made it through most of the initial training and spent my first year with the Army Rangers.
Oh, wow.
Did a couple days in Haiti, did some training down in Panama, some real good things. And then, of course, I got hurt and had to recalibrate what my goals were as far as the military went. And spent 2 years just down the road from 2nd 75th Ranger, 2nd Ranger Battalion, 75th Ranger Regiment at Fort Lewis. Just went down the street a little ways.
That's in Washington,
Yeah,
right?
that's in Washington. So, right next door. Just went down the street, spent 2 years working with field artillery, and then reclassed over to military intelligence.
Oh, wow, okay.
Yeah.
Cool. What was that like?
It's actually really interesting because you start out with military intelligence. They're looking at different jobs, and my original goal with reclassing was they were going to teach me a language. They taught me Korean. I went to Defense Language Institute, spent 2 years down there learning Korean, almost all of which I have forgotten at this point.
Okay.
Because since then, we've been in Iraq and Afghanistan for, 19 years now. And, of course, if you're running missions in Afghanistan and Iraq, you're not maintaining your language skills for Korea.
Right, that makes sense. Okay.
It's but that was the thing. They went in, became a signals intelligence analyst, did a year in Korea. I was in Korea when the towers came down. And then I popped on over to 10th Mountain Division, which, of course, had Mogadishu fame written all over it because they were supporting the Army Rangers back in Black Hawk Down.
Okay.
And 2002, spring of 2002, I was in Bagram, Afghanistan for the first time.
Wow.
Yeah, and working with that, doing signals intelligence analyst, trying to understand a completely different battlefield. Because when they teach you signals intelligence analyst in the military, they teach you, big missions. You're going against the Russians, or you're going against the Chinese, or you're going against one of these other well-established, and they teach you doctrine about, okay, this radio signal is going to emanate from this kind of unit, and we need to understand what's going on with that unit. Wow. And then turn around, and you're in Afghanistan and Iraq, and it's like, yeah, the bad guys are using cell phones. Where's their cell phone at? That's not what they taught me in school.
Right. So was the school a lot kind of like school here, like where we don't really have a lot of practical application? Is it in the military? Is it kind of like that?
Well, no. Practical application, they have to build everything on practical application for the military schools.
Okay.
So literally, they are teaching you what they believe you need to know in order to conduct the operations.
I get it. Okay.
What they taught me in school was exactly what I needed to address the issues with North Korea when I was stationed in Korea.
Right.
Okay, so I knew exactly what it was, the equipment I was dealing with, and all of the rest of that stuff. And then turn around and, hey, you're going to be monitoring a completely different set of signals in Afghanistan. Sorry, we don't have the training, but you're going to go and do it anyway.
So that you basically just trial by fire, essentially.
Yeah.
Okay.
Take us out of the frying pan, stick us into the fire, and run with it.
Wow, that's got to be crazy. Cool. Okay, so and the reason I ask that is because you know how school is. It's kind of like regular school. It's just kind of like you do these classes and that's it.
Yeah, do the classes, and hopefully you'll gather enough of it to, once you get your job, be able to learn what your real job is. Because we're not actually going to. And the Army's usually pretty good about that. Most of the military training is.
Yeah, I was curious with that because, like I said, my uncle was a Marine, so he was very specialized. Like I almost joined the Corps at the age of 18, and his big thing was like I went and talked to the recruiter and everything, and he was like, "Get it in writing, whatever your job title is going to be, anything."
Oh, Department of the Navy's absolutely the worst at screwing you over.
Are they really?
Yes, absolutely the worst. Contracts.
That's probably why he told me.
You go in and they say, okay, we'll go ahead and send you to this school.
Yeah.
But if you don't pass, it's needs of the Navy.
Okay, I see.
Which means that you go in and you're expecting to be a nuclear engineer.
Right.
And 6 months later, you're swabbing the deck on an aircraft carrier.
Because you didn't pass.
Because you didn't pass. Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense to me. See, and luckily I didn't join. I mean, for my sake, maybe, I don't know. And well, you remember being 18.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm a late bloomer, so as my dad so succinctly puts it. That's very cool. Okay, so in the guise of having served your country, obviously, and for 19 years, that's a lifetime. Like I've lived here for 20 years now, so
it's hard to remember what you were doing back before then, right?
No, not really. I mean, I get the equation there, but like for me, not really. Like I have a pretty good memory. Like I was a ball player.
Okay.
So that was my thing. Like that got me to college and the whole bit baseball.
Nice.
But under the guise of having served your country, when did you decide then to run for office? Is this your first? This is your first time, right?
No, this is actually my second time.
Okay.
2 years ago, I ran for Idaho State Legislature. Well, actually, Idaho State Senate.
Oh, okay.
I was running for District 21, which is Meridian.
Okay.
And that was part of the process of getting my feet wet. But you step back and you look at what was going on at the time and what was convincing me that politics was the direction I needed to go. And that was, as soon as I got out of the military, I had to come back. I had to recreate myself, rebuild myself.
Right.
Turn around, jumped straight into college, knocked out 2 degrees in 3 years,
Nice.
Started getting involved with a number of activist organizations.
Okay.
2 of the minors that I picked up were, of course, sustainability. We're all about green living, right?
Okay.
Zero, net carbon footprint, all that fun stuff. And the other was nonprofit management.
Okay.
And this gave me an introduction to an awful lot of nonprofits and the way they work and the way they're managed, particularly here in the area.
Okay.
And when you start to realize that there's actually 800 plus listed nonprofits in the state of Idaho.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. Think about that for a moment. 800.
I just did think about that. That's and there's 1.7 million people in the whole state?
Right.
Right? So,
literally.
Wow.
Yeah, it's incredible. But you start taking a look at how a lot of them operate and how they're managed, and a lot of them just sort of start falling through the cracks.
Right.
Because it's like, wait, there's a nonprofit for that in the state of Idaho? Yes, there is.
So, basically, name a social issue and there's a nonprofit for
Yes.
it? Is that, am I gathering that properly?
Yeah, essentially.
Okay.
And there are some where there's duplicates. You talk about environmentalism in the state of Idaho.
Okay.
Okay. If you start going through the list, you can probably count up, 15, 20 different environmental organizations that are registered as nonprofits in the state of Idaho.
Okay.
How many of them are actually active right now? How many of them have management that is actually making them work and do what they're supposed to be doing?
I would guess 3.
Yeah, about that.
Okay.
You got Citizens Climate Lobby is fairly active here. It's got an Idaho chapter associated with the National. Sierra Club's got a chapter here.
I'm familiar with Sierra Club.
Morrison Knudsen Nature Center. Yeah, that's
the one down off of Walnut?
Yeah, that's the one down off of Walnut, right behind the fishing game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, nice. So environmentalism probably has closer to about 7 or 8
that are actually active.
Active.
Okay, and doing what they're so in the guise of a nonprofit. Then, how are they managed? How are they run? Like, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, I almost said Ponzi scheme, and I don't want to say that.
But you're not wrong.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Reason why is because some of these, nonprofits are politics.
Right. You're right.
Okay. So you start getting involved in a nonprofit, and you start getting involved in the organization, and as soon as the nonprofit starts becoming noteworthy,
I see. Okay.
As soon as it starts becoming noteworthy, it starts attracting interest of people who are interested in power, not necessarily the mission of the nonprofit.
So people with less than noble intentions
find their way involved in it, which is how you end up with some of these organizations where a manager or secretary or treasurer is capable of embezzling $1 million out of an organization.
Didn't that happen here? Didn't someone embezzle from a place like that, or it was someone worked for the courthouse or something a few years back?
It doesn't matter. There's probably about a dozen different nonprofit organizations in the state of Idaho that have had something similar happen to them.
Okay.
Now, whether or not they were prosecuted or simply removed all depends on, the nature of the relationship between the person who was caught and who determines whether or not they're going to actually investigate and prosecute.
Right.
So it's like
I think it was a lady in Canyon County. She worked for the Canyon County government, or it was a guy, or I can't remember. There's somebody. I think it was Canyon County a few years back.
There you're actually dealing with government.
Yeah.
You're not dealing with a nonprofit organization per se, but you're dealing with government.
Gotcha. Okay.
But as they start getting up there and they start becoming more efficient or more recognized, you start seeing people getting involved with it.
Right.
So the Nature Conservancy League. Okay, that's a big one here in Idaho. They do a speakers tour out at Boise State University, ISU. And I remember thinking, hey, this is an environmentalist group, right? This is what this is about. This is about environmental preservation. And then I showed up at some of their speeches and some of their events, and I get individuals, and I'm listening to people talk about, one of the guys was a Duke professor, and he was talking about the age of man, the Anthropocene. And he wasn't talking about environmentalism. And he actually wasn't even talking about conservation. One of his things was, we got a strip mine down south in Bisbee, Arizona. Okay, this is a strip copper mine. It's huge. Big pit. You got oil and stuff that's sitting down in the bottom of it. Let's make that a monument.
Wow.
Let's make that strip mine a monument to the ascendancy of man.
What?
That was literally his thought process, of the coming of man. Everything that exists because man allowed it to exist.
Like rivers?
Yes, like rivers.
That we're responsible, like the ocean?
We are responsible for the flow of the rivers.
Yeah, okay.
Which we are. You step back and you take a look. Take a look at how many dams are along the Snake River.
Sure, that makes sense.
That is an ode to mankind's ascendancy over nature.
Or just our need to have power.
Or our need to have power. However you look. But I showed up at that particular speech and I'm going, wow, this has nothing to do with the name of the organization.
I get it. Okay.
And I start to realize that the people that are coming to these speeches, they're not interested in environmentalism.
Right.
Or in a sense, even conservation.
They're interested in what they can do for themselves, it sounds like.
They're interested in what they can reach out and grab for themselves.
Yeah.
Or create a situation that changes their environment, changes the economy, changes the ecology.
Okay.
But we get back into that. And as someone who's interested in environmentalism myself,
okay.
I actually go back 40 years and I take a look at what happened when the Sierra Club came in and, took out all the slash and burn forestry that used to happen, 40, 50 years ago in the Pacific Northwest.
Okay. That used to be big business up here.
It was huge business, but it was destructive. Reason why is because all of the corporations that were involved in it, whether it's Georgia Pacific, Boise Cascade, some of the others, it was slash and burn forestry. They would come in, cut everything,
right,
and then just let it redevelop naturally.
Right. Instead of going in now,
instead of going in,
go in and plant trees,
and all of the rest of that.
Try to
So
to
there
repair.
were some places that have gone in and done that where they've actually purchased the land. You have corporations that have purchased tree farms. Okay, so they will go in and they will plant the trees and they'll log them and then they'll replant and log. But these are areas that are actually owned and have become tree farms.
Okay.
So when we would lease out,
they're being less destructive to the environment.
Well, they're still destructive to the environment, but for different reasons.
Right, but this is less than the slash and burn style?
Right.
Though.
So what was going on with the slash and burn was these were public lands. They come in, just chop everything down, and then they let it recover naturally because they had used the land for what they had rented it for or leased it for the year.
Okay, I see.
Yeah, so we were dealing with the slash and burn mentality of, how much profit can we turn by the next quarter?
Okay, that makes sense.
Okay, so we came in with Sierra Club and a couple others, and this was 40 years ago. We were looking at science from 40 years ago. They were saying that's bad science. So 40 years ago, we had great individuals like Cecil Andrus, who actually became Secretary of the Interior under one individual. You had Frank Church, who helped get the natural wilderness area.
Frank Church Wilderness, yeah.
Frank Church Wilderness designation. So we had great environmentalist, politicians here in the state of Idaho that went to Washington and did great things and set Idaho up for what we presume to be success.
Right.
And the problem is 40 years ago, the science was still relatively new.
Okay.
But
so in
1980. Yeah. So 40 years ago, these environmental rules that we put in place were essentially written in stone.
And they haven't evolved.
Whatsoever.
Okay.
So 40 years, after 40 years of doubling down on these environmental policies that Sierra Club and other environmental organizations helped create for us to combat the slash and burn of rogue corporations, basically.
Right.
We're dealing with the fallout from it now.
I get it. Okay.
You're watching fires all up and down the West Coast right now. I mean, literally, a month ago, skies were red from the smoke.
Yeah.
It's night, you got smoke in the air, and the fires are reflecting up off the bottom of the clouds, giving everything this weird, eerie glow of red at midnight.
Yeah,
and you're going, it's the end of the world, man.
So how much truth is there? I've heard some different things about this, especially California, because it's, the big one. But the forest management in California has been poor for, it sounds like,
40 years.
Yeah. So, but how much truth is there to that basically what's going on, or not everything, but a lot of what's going on down there is due to poor forest management?
I'd say close to about 90% of it.
Okay,
especially as you start looking at the Pacific Northwest, because one of the problems we have up here is the boring beetle. Boring beetle has infested the Pacific Northwest, and because of the regulations, we can't go in and cut it, because that would be interrupting the natural cycle of things.
Okay.
We can't do a burn or a controlled burn.
To get rid of it.
Because
Wasn't that beetle imported from somewhere?
I don't know. Probably. It doesn't,
I remember hearing something about that.
Yeah, boring beetle. It could have been from anywhere in the world. Welcome to the great diaspora.
Yeah.
Right. We have invasive species of all kinds all over the place. Matter of fact, Jimmy Halliburton, you know him. He usually runs cleanup and a couple other organizations that'll help clean up invasive species along the Boise Riverfront and in a certain other places.
What was the big one that I know when I went to high school in New Mexico, and the squawfish, I think it was one of the big ones down in the rivers down there.
Yeah.
And that was, that was 22, 23 years ago. So it was like, I think they were killing off the other fish. Was what their deal was, but that's an example of an invasive species. So what other invasive species would we have here that would be Idaho local to us?
Well, of
besides
course,
the beetle.
A lot of it's actually plants more often than not.
Okay,
so
yeah.
we're dealing with weeds, invasive weeds that come in and actually choke out the natural, flora and fauna along the rivers.
Yeah.
So you end up with things, and of course that disrupts the system because the river life, whether it's fish, your amphibians, your salamanders, your frogs, all of those things, they get used to a particular kind of vegetation that's along the banks,
right.
The algae, and then all of a sudden you have this really invasive species that takes out their normal food supply.
Right.
Yeah.
So then that leaves the natural species of the area starving, obviously.
Yes.
Okay.
Which is one of the things. Now, of course, an invasive species comes in. Eventually something else comes in to replace it, but it takes like 20, 30, 40 years.
For what, one species to die off and another one to come in?
Well, for something else to come in and actually be able to eat and digest or, start becoming a predator. So one of the things we had with the cats.
Yeah.
Cats. Your little tabby, your house cat, probably one of the most destructive creatures on the planet.
Really?
It kills just to kill.
True.
Songbirds, songbird species have disappeared because of the domestic cat.
Wow.
But what preys on the domestic cat?
Well, we could make a couple of jokes here. I don't know if it's PC to do that, though.
Yeah, probably not.
I'm just,
Yeah, fair enough. If we were to go there. But the thing is, as far as domesticated animals,
right.
we go out of our way to protect our domesticated animals. We go out of our way to protect our pets.
Right.
Never mind the damage that they do to the environment.
Right.
That's understandable. But your cats, they take out an awful lot of things. The songbirds, other things, local rodents. Of course, some of them. If you have ever been to Oklahoma,
I have.
The prairie dog farms.
Yeah. There's a lot of that down in that area.
Yeah,
Southwest.
there are. Literally, they have parks dedicated to prairie dogs.
Yeah. They call them whistle pigs up here.
Whistle pigs. Yeah.
I always thought that was crazy. I actually went whistle pig shooting out. What's the road that leads to the backside of Kuna?
Right.
Pleasant Valley.
Yeah.
We went out doing that years ago when I first moved here with a buddy of mine.
Yeah.
We went out shooting them, and I was like, dude, those are prairie dogs. No, they're whistle pigs. I was like, man, they're prairie dogs, dude. Come on. Because we had a lot of prairie dogs down in New Mexico also. So like Texas, Arizona, Oklahoma, New Mexico, in that area.
Yeah.
They're all over the place.
Yeah, prairie dogs are one of those, they're a native species.
Right.
But the thing is they're so prolific, it's nearly impossible to kill them all.
Yeah, totally.
Well,
they're like rabbits.
I think they actually reproduce faster than rabbits.
Yeah, exactly.
You head down to you'll see more prairie dogs in your life than you actually will wild rabbits.
You know what? You're right. I have. I definitely have seen that. That's funny.
But that's one of those things. You step back and you start taking a look at the environmentalism and what's going on and the things, So we got 40 years of bad environmental policy.
Okay.
That comes back to haunt us year after year after year. And this year it's really hit us hard.
Yeah. So is Oregon also included in that?
Well, anywhere where the Federal Department of Interior is involved. Any place Department of Interior's Bureau of Land Management.
Was that where Kempthorne went?
No. Kempthorne went to Department of VA. No. Yeah. He went to VA. Kempthorne. Yeah, I'm pretty sure he's managing the local VA.
No, when he was under Bush, remember?
Oh.
When he went to D.C.? After he was governor.
Andrus. You're talking... I think Andrus went to Department of Interior.
Okay, but Kempthorne went to something. I can't remember what it was. Because I think when I moved here, he was governor. I moved here in 2000.
Okay.
So he was governor, right, at that time?
I don't know. I was in the Army then. So my paying attention to what was going on in Idaho politics in 2000 was kind of a little bit distracted.
Well, he ended up, I think, when Otter took over for him.
Right.
I think is how this goes down. It's been a while since I thought about this, but I think he was Department of something under Bush, I think.
Okay.
And I think it was under his second term. if I remember correctly. I'm not sure.
Right. That would have been about the same time that Risch took over for the last
Jim
of his
Risch.
term.
That's right.
You know, because Kemp Thorne accepted an appointment. Jim Risch, as lieutenant governor, I think at the time,
you're right. Okay,
accepted for the balance of Kemp Thorne's
the remainder
term,
of the term,
which was like a year or something.
That's right. You're right. Okay.
Secretary of the Interior.
Secretary of the Interior.
So
there
both
you go.
in, you know,
49 to be exact.
What's that?
49.
49th
Idaho's
Secretary.
actually had 2 governors accept the position of Secretary of Interior.
And that's what
you
we're
know,
talking about when it comes to the environmental
in our lifetime,
stuff,
yes.
right? Sort of,
Yes.
Okay. So I just want to make sure that I'm clear on it too, because like I said, I'm learning a lot about this process now. So in the context of all that, so your first attempt at running at Senate, right, was so you were unsuccessful with that, I take it?
It depends on what you count as success.
Well, you didn't win the seat.
No, I didn't win the seat.
Yeah.
But as far as a Libertarian candidacy in the state of Idaho in a 3-way race, I pulled about 5.5%.
Okay.
Which is fairly high for a 3-party race, especially in a year where everything's reasonably stable.
Wow. Okay.
I mean, 2 years ago, life was pretty stable for an awful lot of people, right?
Right.
You know, it wasn't like 2020 had come along and you're
We
dealing
didn't
with
have
COVID.
murder hornets.
We didn't have murder hornets. We didn't have COVID. We didn't have
Right.
lockdowns. We didn't have all of these things that were making people look at the different politicians that they had trusted, you know, to manage their lives and livelihoods for them, you know, completely making the worst decisions in the world.
Yes, agreed. Agreed. Well, and also too, you know, I think this year, and this is my opinion on this, my personal opinion. I think this year has really forced people to have to open their eyes to the reality around us, if that makes sense, you know, like as to like really what's going on. Because obviously with what you said with 40 years ago, you know, you're working to get these environmental policies in place, and I like the term set in stone.
Right.
Well, in my mind anyway, it would seem to me that wouldn't it make more sense to be very fluid with that?
It would be. It should be.
Okay.
You know, and that's one of the things that we're looking. But the thing is 40 years ago, the environmental policy was leave it alone.
Right.
Leave it alone.
Right. And it'll just come back on its own.
And it'll do what nature does, all on its own.
Right.
Well, but then you go back to that one issue where I was talking about, you know, the age of man.
Right.
There is nothing that exists today that doesn't exist if not for man's interference.
Right.
Okay? The Frank Church Wilderness area,
Right.
if it wasn't for Cecil Anders, it wouldn't exist in its current state today.
Right.
Period. You know, there is not a natural park in the United States that exists in its natural state. We've created this pseudo-natural state in all of our national parks.
Right.
And tried to create this little pristine, primitive utopia, you know, except we haven't.
I get it. Yes. And you're right. You're not wrong. I completely agree with you on that. What do you think then, you know, with having so much experience in this area, what do you think is probably our greatest challenge right now when it comes to our and locally specifically, but what do you think our greatest challenge here locally is with our environmental issues?
Most of it's coming to terms with how to manage the land.
Okay, so like BLM stuff?
Right. BLM's a terrorist organization.
Yeah.
For those of you out there, I'm talking Bureau of Land Management. Okay, Bureau of Land Management is a terrorist organization.
Well, hey, we got to make that clear.
Yes. They are the terrorist organization. No, but seriously, Bureau of Land Management has affected the way that we do an awful lot of things. The reason why is because we look at appointees. Mm-hmm. Okay, so Idaho was actually running into a real issue, and this was one of those things that was brought up by Bundy at the time. You know, the whole Bundy Ranch issue, okay, that entire thing was going down because of a uranium mine one deal, or uranium one mine deal.
Wow, what's that?
And, well, it was an arrangement actually taken care of under Obama.
Oh, okay, we're talking
right.
Okay,
we're talking about that under
Gotcha.
Obama with Hillary Clinton as Secretary of State.
Yep.
Okay. We have uranium-rich potential
in Idaho.
In Idaho.
Okay.
Well, all across the western United States, we have uranium-1 potential because the Bundy standoff was down in Nevada.
Gotcha. Okay.
Okay, so that's down in Nevada. And then the Anderson Ranch, where the Bundys got involved, that was over in Oregon. And, of course, we have an awful lot of wilderness area here. If you take a look at some of the geological surveys, Idaho has record thorium deposits.
Really?
Yes.
Wow. Well, it's the gem state.
It's the gem state.
Yeah.
But we got record-level thorium deposits here. And if thorium ever becomes a nuclear fuel, all of our natural resources are up for grabs.
So they're going to Afghanistan us?
They're going to Afghanistan, Idaho for thorium fuel for your thorium-powered Cadillac as soon as they get it off of the assembly line.
Will it fly?
I doubt it. Have you seen the prototype for the thorium Cadillac?
I have not.
Dude, you got to look it up, man. It's sci-fi way out there looking.
Really?
Yeah, but
is it like some the new Total Recall kind of stuff going on?
Yeah.
Have you seen that, the newer Total Recall remake?
No, I haven't seen the
They
new
got
remake.
the flying cars, basically. Like they kind of hover. It's kind of like what's the movie with Harrison Ford back in the day? Blade Runner.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of like the cars in Blade Runner.
Okay.
A little bit. I would imagine they probably got their modeling. I mean, obviously it was Blade Runner, so. But yeah, so
no, the thorium Cadillac, it's real sci-fi looking, and I'm not talking the blocky kind like in Blade Runner that looks like the friggin' Tesla truck.
Yeah,
no, this is sleek, it's smooth, it's shiny,
but it runs on thorium.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's got a thorium nuclear reactor engine.
Oh wow, I bet it's powerful.
Well, I don't know that it's powerful, in as much as it's got persistent fuel. I get it. Your entire lifetime, you will never have to replace the fuel charge.
Wow.
And that's the goal. It's
is it like a zero emission type thing?
Well, it's nuclear energy, so it's going to be sort of and you never actually remove the battery or the thorium charge that's in it.
Right.
So yeah, it'd be a zero emission car.
Cool.
The engine would have to, of course, contain the radiation that it produces.
Right.
But yeah.
So it'd have to be built well.
Yeah.
Obviously, because
the containment.
Because obviously nuclear. That could become dangerous at some point.
But thorium's supposed to be one of those zero reduced nuclear energy sources.
Wow. Okay.
So it even goes beyond the next gen.
Yeah.
Nuclear, where we're still dealing with uranium with a half-life even after you've depleted it. There's still that residual uranium isotope that comes off of the system.
Right.
Thorium, once it's spent, supposedly.
Okay.
I'm going to have to get with my 15-year-old nuclear physics son.
Yeah.
To actually explain to me the difference between the uranium and the thorium.
Yeah, he's going to have to explain it to me, too.
Yeah.
You lost me when you started comparing them. But, I mean, I can follow along pretty well to a point with that stuff.
But I remember sitting down and talking with him during one of my random speaks. I do a live thing like this on a fairly regular basis.
Yeah, Cup of Joe.
Yeah,
I watch you all the time, actually.
My son will actually come on and ask me some questions, and him and I will do some exchanges. And one of them did happen to be about residual nuclear energy.
Okay.
And he enlightened me about the thorium, zero residual.
Right.
And it's like, wow, okay. I knew I liked the thorium Cadillac idea, but this makes it sound even better.
Yeah. Well, it sounds really cool. And obviously, that's probably been a really big deal because, I mean, and how old are you? I forget.
I'm 51.
Okay, so you're 11 years older than me. So you really remember the boats, the big cars from like the 70s.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Your Oldsmobiles.
Yeah.
Your Lincolns, your Cadillacs, even back in the 70s, your muscle cars were big cars.
Big cars as well. Your GTOs. Your Mustangs and your Camaros.
Yeah.
And they're all real heavy.
Yeah.
And then, I was
your
born
Mopar Duster.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Your Novas.
Yeah, your Novas, your Cudas.
Yeah, those were all heavy cars that you had to put 400 plus cubic inch motors in order to move. V8.
I love all of those things.
You're stepping back. You're even going. Even the sleek cars back then. Your Ferraris. That was a 12-cylinder car. That Ferrari was.
Wow, it's like the Batmobile, the V12 Batmobile.
Yeah,
that's a thing.
Yeah,
for all you people out there, the Batmobile. That's a fucking car. Just saying, obviously Bruce Wayne's rich. But no, so I was born in 80. So in the 80s when I was growing up, when I was coming up, it was, they started moving to the more smaller, Japanese cars.
Well, that was the fallout after 1976 with the whole
oil
crisis and the shortage and everybody waiting in line for 2 hours to get a tank of gas.
That really happened.
Yes.
You were there.
Yes.
Okay. Explain that, actually, because there's probably a lot of us that don't know.
Here's part of the problem. Reason why is because at the time we were actually pulling out of the Middle East.
Right.
Okay. 1976 was the year Jimmy Carter was running for office. So you're dealing with 76 to 80 during Jimmy Carter's era. Now, the thing is that was a real big year, or real big time in history as far as administrations go. Reason why is because you look at the Russians invaded Afghanistan.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
Okay, now the thing they don't tell you is right up until the time where the Russians invaded Afghanistan, it was U.S.-Russian joint nation building in Afghanistan in 76, 77, 78.
The 1 year that George H.W. Bush was director of CIA was in 76.
Yeah.
And he was there for 1 year.
Yeah, look at what he did for that 1 year.
What did he do?
Well, okay, so here's one of the things.
I wasn't alive, so.
Okay. We run back 50 years. We take a look at what was going on. We had the Green Revolution.
Okay.
Okay, now when you talk about the Green Revolution, it's not the green that you think of today. It's not the new Green Deal where AOC is talking about, let's do great things. No, the Green Revolution of the 1970s was an agricultural revolution.
Okay.
Okay. We had all of these new ideas and new concepts about how to grow food.
Right. Okay.
And we exported this knowledge all around the world. Matter of fact, one of the places we were doing it, we had experiments with agriculture going on in Afghanistan at the time.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
Morrison Knudsen, they were a construction company back in the day.
Is that a realty?
No. What they did was engineering.
Okay.
Okay. Morrison Knudsen was engineers. I mean, large-scale engineers.
Oh, okay.
Okay, these were the people who built mega dams.
Got it. Okay, yeah.
Okay, so Morrison Knudsen is actually responsible for building one of those mega dams in Afghanistan that was responsible for the irrigation of Kandahar province.
Okay.
Yeah, so we got this entire area in southern Afghanistan that used to be desert, and we built a dam so that they could irrigate, and we created the irrigation system so this entire region could become irrigated and become an agricultural center for Afghanistan.
Wow, okay.
And
this is in the 70s?
This was in the 70s.
Okay.
And then the Russians invaded.
Right. What year exactly did they invade?
I don't know. I think it was 79.
79, 80?
80.
Somewhere there?
It had to be 80. Reason why is because that was the Olympics where we refused to participate because the Russians were invited. Something like that. But that was, yeah.
Okay.
So it was the first time we had refused to participate in an Olympics over political issues.
Got it.
Yeah. So 1980.
Got it. Yeah. That sounds right.
But we had created this, we had turned this entire desert into an oasis because of this dam that a local company at the time, Morrison Knudsen, built.
Yeah, they're local to here. Right.
Yeah, well, they were until they got, until they got banned.
Wow.
No, they had a CEO that came in and literally caused the entire company to fail.
Really?
And then they got parted out. So there's residuals of the company that still exist here in Boise.
Okay.
But they aren't the company they were 50 years ago.
I understand. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember where I remember that name from.
But they built the dam, and so here we are 40 years ago. We're back in Afghanistan.
Right.
Okay. That entire area that we created this irrigation district for, it's all growing opium now.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's probably growing, yeah. Well,
technology that we installed 40, 50 years ago.
Yeah.
Is now being used to supply 70% of the world's opium production.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say that too, because what a lot of people don't realize is like I mentioned, I made the joke earlier about Afghanistaning us. Their natural resources that they have in that country are abundant. Like
Right.
all the indium metals that they use in the cell phones,
Yeah.
they use in the electronics, and then not only that, but a lot of people, and obviously you were there, think that it's they're in Afghanistan for oil, which is a big. It's
Oh,
like,
no.
yeah,
No.
they're there for the
There's
heroin.
no oil. Well, heroin's a byproduct.
Right, but the opium, right?
Yeah,
but
the opium,
yes,
they're growing down there, that's a byproduct.
yeah.
Okay, they actually have a significant amount of natural resources.
And
it's mountainous.
yeah.
It's mountainous.
Yeah.
So you're looking at things like uranium. You're looking at things like thorium. You're looking at
selenium, and
earth metals.
Yeah, all the indiums.
the rare earths.
I call them the indiums because I can't remember all the
indiums.
names.
Yeah, exactly. But those are the resources that are there, and it's one of those. And it's scary because we actually contracted out to the Chinese to go in and mine those elements from Afghanistan.
No kidding.
Yeah, so we're not even
Wow.
directly benefiting from it. We're second and third generation,
In line.
I
get it.
because China goes in, they do the mining, they extract the minerals,
Yep.
then they take it back to Fox Industries, and Fox Industries converts it into cell phones, and then they sell us the cell phones after they pay their workers $2 an hour in order to make them.
Wow. Did they even pay him that much?
Supposedly they do pay them that much. Reason
Wow.
why is because they don't know what to do with all the money they're getting now.
Really? That sounds terrible. I heard it in your voice. It's like, yeah, totally. I get it.
Well, when you're in China and you realize that $2 to $3 an hour is a lot of money for these people and they don't know how to spend it,
Yeah, it's crazy.
it's like, dude, don't even talk to me about, the minimum wage $15 an hour in Seattle right now.
That's
Yeah.
a good minimum wage.
It is,
Isn't it? I mean-
well, you would think so.
Isn't Idaho still $7.50?
Okay, here's the thing. Idaho accepts the national minimum wage. The national minimum wage is $7.25.
It's $7.25. Okay.
Okay, it's $7.25.
Yeah.
So the minimum wage in the state of Idaho is $7.25.
Right.
Okay.
And that's the national
That's
mandate for that. It's
national mandate.
$7.25.
We are paying because national has decided that is the minimum that anybody in America is going to earn per hour,
Right.
unless you're handicapped.
Really? And then it goes up or what?
It goes down.
It goes down?
Yeah.
How the fuck does that work?
If you're handicapped, an employer can get away with paying you $2.25.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
So they're like basically like waiters?
Well, not even waiter. Literally, they're the
Jesus.
they're the.
Well, no, you know
kid
what I mean,
who
like
sweeps the
waiting
floors.
tables. Like when I waited tables in like in high school and
yeah.
college.
Yeah.
Back in and this is the late '90s. I think.
Yeah, so
I
plus
think we
as
were
a waiter,
getting
you're making
$2.30 an hour
$2.25,
plus
$2.30
tips.
plus tips. Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you were going to make money, you had to bust your ass
To
because
make them tips.
Yeah, because your waiter, your server, would be the one making you the tip, and
Yep.
if you were a busser, you were
got a
dependent
percentage.
upon you got a percentage.
Yep. Well, see,
Yeah.
and I worked
And
at
if
a place.
you didn't bust your ass for the waitress,
Yeah, you didn't get shit.
She didn't tip you.
Yeah, not at all. See, I worked at a place where it was actually when I lived in Arkansas. I worked at this Mexican restaurant, and the pay was, I think it was like $2.30 an hour. I don't. This was like
Right.
20-something years ago, but it was like $2.30 an hour or so, $2.50 an hour, whatever it was. But if you didn't declare enough tips when you clocked out for the night, when you cashed out,
Right.
your thing, they would go audit you and then pay you minimum wage, and then you couldn't accept tips. That was their threat. So it was like,
Yeah.
you better claim all your tips and blah,
Yeah.
blah, 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 But so people that have a handicap make less money legally working a job. So like Walmart greeter, for instance, that's a job
Right.
where a handicapped person works.
Yeah.
a lot.
Now, the ones that are actually notorious about it are the ones who like to claim some sort of nonprofit or benefit status.
Yeah.
Goodwill
Really?
is particularly notorious about hiring disabled individuals and paying them, that significantly lower wage.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's heartbreaking.
You never knew how exploitive Goodwill was of, their
No, I
handicapped
didn't.
employees.
I know I got a backpack there a couple months ago for $5, and it's a JanSports, the one I got right now.
Yeah.
Great backpack.
Well, yeah, you go in, you pick the stuff up. But the thing is the poor kid who's sweeping the floor, he's sweeping the floor for $1.30 an hour.
Change.
Yeah, for chump change.
That's horrible.
But he's employed.
So what?
Yeah, his Social Security disability check makes, but that's where it comes into the situation. He's got a job that earns him a little more.
Right.
But at the same time, if he's declaring, what he should be getting as a full wage,
right,
he loses his Social Security disability.
That's so crazy to me.
So we got this entire social safety net that has been gained by corporations like Goodwill and a number of other organizations where they're able to continue collecting,
huge amounts of money.
Yeah, huge amounts of money. We need somebody to sweep the floor. Okay, now the individual sweeping the floor, we're paying him dirt.
Yeah.
We're still getting the floor swept.
It's slave labor.
Yeah, it is slave labor.
Literally.
And the nice thing is because we are employing them for, $1.25 an hour, the government's compensating us for employing them.
Right, and then they get paid. I get how that. Well, it's like the way that prisoners get paid. So prisoners get paid.
Right.
This is how prisoners get paid. So they'll go to a work camp, we'll say, right? And they'll go to work at an actual place of business. And they tell the prisoners that they will make minimum wage.
Right.
Well, what ends up happening is the place that the facility that they're at will take X amount of percentage of that wage, right? And then they have to pay for this, that, and the other, right? Let's just say X, Y, and Z. And then they'll put money on the prisoner's books.
Their commissary.
Right? And then they'll put money into a savings account for them.
Yeah.
And so basically it's and there's a place here in Idaho, St. Anthony's, out in eastern Idaho, up above Idaho Falls, where it's the work camp, St. Anthony's work camp. And the prisoners go out and work at the potato sheds out there, right? And they do all, and I mean, they go off compound. They go do the whole thing. They're out in the community.
It's a work
working.
release.
Yeah. And they're taking the work camp, the prison facility, they're taking probably 80% of the money from these guys.
Yeah.
And giving them 20%. But for being in prison, these guys have nothing to do. They have nowhere to go, right? They're happy.
They get out of their cell.
Yeah.
They get out of the day room. They get to look at something different.
Right. But the point being is that you just reminded me of that with that because it's ultimately slave labor.
Well, it is.
Yeah.
Okay, it's slavery repackaged. Have you ever actually taken a look at the 13th Amendment?
What is it? Tell me.
Okay, that's the one that came right after the Emancipation Proclamation.
Okay. And what,
Lincoln said, 1865. Lincoln came out and said all men are free.
Oh, yeah. Okay, I know what you're talking
and then the Emancipation Act came out, and this was funny because the Emancipation Proclamation, or the 13th Amendment, was ratified before the Emancipation Proclamation was disseminated out across the entirety of the nation. So you hear about Juneteenth, right?
Yeah, correct.
That was June 19th, 2 years after the Emancipation Proclamation was made.
Right.
The last settlement, there was an army unit that went to the last settlement where there were still slaves in America.
Okay. And this was down in the South?
And this was in Texas, of all places.
Really?
Texas.
Wow.
This army unit finally showed up down in Texas, and the army unit's looking at the situation, and out comes the City Chamber of Commerce or whoever it was, and they said, we're here to deliver the emancipation, and said, you know what, it's planting season. Can you wait 2 weeks?
Wow.
But, before that was delivered to that last little settlement in Texas where we had slaves, the 13th Amendment was ratified across the United States. Into the Constitution. Okay, now what the 13th Amendment did was it repackaged slavery.
Yeah.
Private citizens could no longer have slaves.
Right.
But if an individual were to have committed a crime, as punishment, they could serve it as a slave.
Slave labor.
To the state.
Yeah.
To pay off their debt to society. Okay, so 13th Amendment just repackaged slavery, and it turned it from a private institution into a public institution.
That is absolute fucking insanity.
And as soon as it became a public institution, the states started making money by leasing out the slave labor to replace the private labor that had been owned. So it's like you just changed
So basically
the
they just changed the terminology.
Yeah. They changed the terminology.
That's amazing. Holy shit. Okay.
Yeah, so it's like 13th Amendment. It's one of those things you step back and go, wait, we didn't get rid of slavery.
Right.
Slavery's still alive and well in the United States.
Right. It's just prisoners.
It's prisoners.
Yeah.
25% of the world's prison population is in the United States and is being used as slave labor.
So the United States owns, or not owns, but has 25% of the world's prison population?
Depending on how you look at it and depending on how it's reported. I don't believe we actually have that high a percentage.
Okay.
Reason why is because I think Russia and China
have larger prison population.
Well, they fudge their numbers. It's what do you
see.
Count as a prisoner.
I see. Okay.
Okay.
Well, they
right
probably
now,
have more political prisoners.
Yeah. Like right now, the Uyghur population in China.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they're not prisoners, but they're being placed in re-education camps and. Yeah.
What's the deal going on over there? I've been hearing about supposedly there's a lot of Muslims in these concentration camps.
Well, that's what the
China?
Uyghur population is. The Uyghurs are Islamic Chinese.
I get it. Okay.
And China's huge.
Yeah, dude.
Okay. We talk about China, and we think these little petite, maybe like but I mean literally there are so many different variations of genetics within the boundaries of China that you really can't say, well, all Chinese look like this, because no, they don't.
They don't. Well, there's a lot of influence there, Mongolian influence.
Yeah, well,
and,
the Mongolians,
Asia's a big place.
It is.
Russia,
it's huge.
Mongolia, China, Japan, Afghanistan, all the extant countries, the Middle East. I mean, it's a huge place.
But it's like you got Chinese, depending on which portion of China they come from, and they got like 7 different languages that they speak.
Right.
So you got Mandarin, which is the primary, and then you got Cantonese, which is, and then you got the Taiwan.
The regional dialects.
And then all of the regional dialects.
Right. Kind of like Spanish.
Or, Gaelic, Scots.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
Anywhere, we tend to get a little bit lazy about our languages because, we're the United States. We all speak English, right? Never mind the fact that most of us. But never mind the fact that, if you grew up in Idaho and all of a sudden you're in Boston, somebody's talking about the cockies.
The car?
The car.
Where's the car?
Where's the car?
The yard.
It's out back in the yard.
It's out there in the yard next to Noma.
You start wandering up to me and just wicked, man.
Oh, it's wicked good. Wicked good fun.
Wicked good fun.
We're going to go to the garden and watch the wicked good fun Bruins play, and drink a Sam Adams.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But even in the United States, we got these dialectual issues, but it's nothing.
No, not like that.
Even my time in Korea, my 2 years I spent learning Korean, it was conversational.
And you were in
Korean
South Korea?
I was in South Korea.
Okay.
But you spend 2 years learning conversational Korean, and you get over there and you realize that, they don't speak Korean the same way in Seoul that they do in Busan.
Right. So, it's regional. That's like that. That's why I said Spanish, because I'm half Puerto Rican, and so I learned Spanish growing up, and I actually lived in Mexico as an exchange student in high school, and so when I went down there, and I traveled around Mexico, and just from Veracruz to Michoacan, it was different. But it's mainly the slang. You know what I mean? I could talk to people and understand most of what they were saying, but when you start getting that rapid fire, and we talk rapid fire, Puerto Rican stuff, rapid fire.
Even the speed you talk at too. Yeah, it's different. Depending on which region you go into,
and the inflections,
and the inflection.
We don't roll R's. Puerto Ricans, we don't roll R's.
Right.
So I can't say chorro very well. I had to really flex to do that.
Right.
But you know what I'm saying? So we don't roll R's and stuff. So I get it. The language thing.
I mean, you start looking at that in the Korean, and a lot of the Uyghur population actually comes from along the Silk Road.
Okay.
Reason why is because during 500 BC or AD, when Muhammad was doing the whole thing, the Silk Road was still...
That was the trade route, right?
It was the trade route.
The Silk Road, yeah.
So the Islamic empires that were in the area at the time would go through and they'd expand, and literally it was the Silk Road that took Islam
into China.
into China and into the Philippines.
So
and
didn't the
into
Silk Road
Siam.
stretch from Saudi Arabia, right?
It was from coast to coast.
Yeah,
It literally
from like
was
the Persian
from,
Gulf, like all the way.
If you actually take a look at it, it goes from the Rock of Gibraltar.
Oh, Hercules Gates.
Hercules Gates,
Yeah.
Rock of Gibraltar.
That's right, you're right, okay.
It would go all the way through around the Mediterranean. There was actually routes on both sides
Yep.
of the Mediterranean that took it clear to the Atlantic
So like
Ocean.
they go through like Morocco, Egypt.
Yeah, and then you had another portion
Ghana.
that took it clear east to the Pacific Ocean, where Hong Kong was, where China, this entire way.
Yeah.
And then you had the crossroads in Afghanistan.
I see.
Because
Okay.
you literally had to go through Afghanistan in order to get into India because of the Himalayas that got in the way.
Right, the mountains,
So
yeah.
the easiest way to travel was through Afghanistan, which is why Afghanistan was this mecca of culture at
Get
the
it.
time, because you had all of these different traders and travelers,
Right.
that were seeking knowledge. They would bring things through. So you had Islamic traders coming from Jerusalem that were moving these ideas of Islam,
Right.
clear through. So you ended up with entire cultures that had adopted this idea of Islam
Right.
in what would then have been Western China.
I see. Okay.
So, but it's still a lot of tribalism. There are areas of China that are still untouched.
Is there a lot of feudalism there still?
I don't know that you can call it feudalism per se, but it's villages.
Yeah.
These are villages that still don't have access to the technology that a lot of us enjoy today.
Right. And is there a lot?
It's just
Are they a lot of
they've
rice
never been
farmers?
exposed. Well, they're agricultural. They're
Yeah.
agrarian. So it doesn't matter what they're growing. It could be rice, could be anything.
Could be anything. Okay.
But yeah, rice is predominant through there.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the Uyghurs, you got that entire desert region right there that they're still exploring.
Really?
Yeah,
Wow, that's amazing.
yeah.
But what's the deal though with that? Is that true? Like, because I've been hearing a lot about this, and again, like kind of like when we're talking outside, there's things like where I hear about it, and you kind of go look things up, and you can't find a lot of information. Like, are they really having concentration camps in China?
I'm going to go with yes.
Okay.
And part of this gets back to the environmentalism issue, because whether you believe man-made climate change is real or not, we have to admit that climate change is happening.
Yeah, every day.
Okay. And a lot of these communities where the Uyghurs come from are being affected by this climate change, which means they're
Okay.
dealing with drought, which means they're migrating.
So
they're picking
their
up
way
and
of
moving,
life
and
is
they're
being
moving
affected.
into these areas where there is an established Chinese presence.
I get it.
Okay. And they're bringing their Islam with them from their villages and their tribes.
Right.
And of course, China's anti-religious.
Completely. That's
So they're moving into
Yeah.
these areas, and now China's looking at them going, we can't have you bringing Islam into, because it's contrary to Chinese culture.
right.
So they're turning around, and because they don't know how to cope with them, they're creating these re-education camps for them.
Wow.
And a lot of this just has to be because the Uyghurs are Chinese citizens. They grew up, 4 generations within the borders of China,
Right.
but the governments never had to deal with them because they were just there.
I get it. Yeah.
Yeah, and now all
Out
of a
of sight,
sudden,
out of mind.
Out of sight, out of
Yeah.
mind. And now all of a sudden they have to move because their villages can't support them anymore.
Right.
And they're bringing with them their Islam, and
And so religion's just a no-go in China.
for the most part, yeah.
Wow. Like they don't even have Christianity even.
I think there's a certain amount of that. Reason why is because Hong Kong was a sectarian state, and they allowed the freedom of religion because, up until the point where Britain released Hong Kong back over to China.
Right.
So you still have that.
So you have the
aspect-
Anglican
Yeah, you have
aspect
the
of it,
Anglican
yeah.
aspect of it.
Okay.
So Hong Kong has been like one of those religious sanctuaries, if you will.
I get it.
Within China.
Yeah.
But Chinese primary religion is Confucianism, and
Okay.
the religion of Confucianism is bureaucracy. I mean, really, it is.
I understand.
And so here you have this independent type of religion that believe something entirely different from, and it's coming from these villages. It's coming from these rural agrarian villages.
Right.
And they don't want it infecting.
I get it. Well, is this true then about China? They're very much about control of the citizens' thoughts. Would that be a fair statement, or is there a better way to say that?
Based on everything I'm seeing come out of there, they are. Their social ranking system that they've created, or at least that we're being told about,
right?
Is very much about behavior control, behavior modification.
Like allegiance to the state.
Allegiance to the state, or just adjusting to a specific sort of acceptable behavior pattern.
Right.
Only the state's using social media and other forms to implement that.
So they use their social media strictly to propagandize the
well,
citizens.
Doesn't everybody?
I don't know. I mean, you could say that.
It's amazing how much counter propaganda we get away with in our social media here in the United States. But
for instance, like here in the States, for instance, like I'm on a lot of platforms. It's the way business is done in this field anymore. It's all social media.
Yeah, it is.
So I'm on everything, but I can say whatever the fuck I want. Mm-hmm. I can sit right here and I can curse. Like my mother got mad. My dad was watching the show with Ginger, and I said, "What'd Mom think?" And she's old. She's an old Puerto Rican lady. She's her one comment, and I can hear her saying this to my father. They're retired, and they live in Texas. And I said, "What'd Mom think, Dad?" He says, "Your mother heard you say the word fuck, and so she fucking went in the kitchen." That's exactly how he said it too.
Right.
And I was like, "You just said it." And he's like, "Yeah, but your mom. She was a school teacher for 25 years."
Okay.
So you get it. You already get it.
Yeah.
But the funny thing is if she gets mad. Her favorite word's motherfucker.
Right.
She's like, it's bad. She's like Samuel L. Jackson.
Okay.
Bad.
So you said you're half Puerto Rican and your mom's Puerto Rican side, right?
Yes.
Okay. For some reason, I don't believe your mom actually said motherfucker.
It's her favorite curse word. I swear to God. If God strike me down if I'm lying. If she curses.
Okay.
Her favorite curse word, you motherfucker. She gets the look. You know how old Puerto Rican, and my mother's real dark. She's black. She's a black Puerto Rican.
Right.
She's real dark. So that look. She's got that attitude, Bronx, New York attitude of, like, how they do the head, like, oh no, you didn't, kind of thing. That's her. I swear to God, Joe, that's her favorite word. My older brother, he's about 6'4", 6'3", 6'4". He's a lot bigger than I am. He probably outweighs me. I'm about 200 pounds. He's about this is back in the day. He's about 220, 230.
Yeah.
And he said something to her one time. I was about 11, and he's 7 years older than me.
Mm-hmm.
He come back from college, I think. It was summertime, and we were all hanging out at the house. He said something to her, and she jumped on his back. She says, "I don't give a fuck how big you are, you motherfucker." I swear to God. I was like this far away, and she's hitting him, and he's laughing at her. He's like, "Ma, get off my back. Come on." And she's like, "I brought you into this." That's her other favorite thing. "I brought you into this world.
I can dig you out.
I'll take you out." You know what I mean? So, like, it's just kind of one of those things.
So she doesn't have a Puerto Rican swear that she uses.
Oh no, she curses in Spanish all the time.
Okay.
But that's just her thing. Like because she's very prim and proper.
Right.
You know how school teachers are, especially old school. Like, she started teaching, I think, I don't even remember the 80s. It was like, at full time.
It's all good. It's all good.
Yeah. Well, because she had kids. I was little, and she stayed at home with me when I was small. And then I think when I started going to school is when she went to back to work.
Okay.
And obviously, you remember a time when it was much simpler, when you could get away with just one parent working or whatever the thing was.
Well, you had the latchkey kids, You get done with school, you could go home and, 4 hours at home, no parents in the house.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah.
Not anymore, because now it's child abuse. But
But
you know what I mean? Like, so
it depends. That's another thing that's real interesting about today's day and age. The way latchkey kids.
Yeah.
Can you get away with it or not? And a lot of that depends on whether you're looking at urban, suburban, or rural America.
You're right.
Because rural America, Dad's going to be out in the back 40, Mom may be doing something in town like running the Joanne's, sew clinic.
Right.
You get home, you do your homework, and if Dad's not back, you go out into back 40 and see, what else you can do to help out.
Right.
And about the time you get back from the field, Mom's home and cooking dinner.
Right.
But that's rural America.
Yes.
You can go home in 4 hours, get done with school, 4 hours, you don't see your parents, but you know where they're at.
Right. And they know where you are.
And they know where you are.
Yeah.
Urban America, depending on where in urban America, it's the exact same situation. Or, if you got an entrepreneur family,
Yeah.
they're running the shop downstairs and you're in the apartment upstairs.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's very prevalent back east.
Yeah, that's very prevalent. Even in those areas where they won't issue a business license for those people who are running, the little salon downstairs. The cost of business is, you pay the fine every time the cops show up every other week.
Right.
Or
back in the day, they called them vice cops.
Right. Excuse me, do you have a license to run this salon?
Yeah, totally.
No.
It's like, no, but I got a gambling parlor downstairs.
Yeah. And that pays the bills.
Yeah, that's the old school shit.
Yeah. Got a speakeasy downstairs.
Yeah, I got a speakeasy. I was just going to say that.
Tell you what, here's the bribe, just go away.
Yeah, that's pretty much how it works.
But whether you're running the speakeasy or just running a hair salon or what, you had street-level storefront on pop-up stairs, and I grew up in the suburbs. It wasn't unusual to do the latchkey kid thing back then, but it's like these days, if you live in the suburbs, and somebody isn't at home when the kids get out of school.
Yeah. All hell breaks loose.
All hell breaks loose. CPS is on the way.
Yeah, isn't that nuts?
And it's like, how do you expect us to afford a $400,000, home?
Right, if we don't work.
If both of us aren't working.
Right.
60
hours a week.
60 hours a week. And, the kid comes home from school. You see him get off the bus. I'm not home. What are you doing on the phone calling CPS?
Right. Well,
but we've created that artificial. We've created that artificial.
I was just gonna say that, like we've created that.
We did.
We really did.
We
did. It's kind of like the thing. It's like I wanted to make a joke earlier about the cat, but. You know what I mean? Probably most, anybody listening to this, and, which pretty much are people that know me, I'm sure.
Right. They already know what your cat joke's going to be.
Yeah, they're guaranteed.
Just mentioning the cat joke.
Yeah.
Jimmy's going to say it.
Yeah, exactly. You know what I mean? They wouldn't be offended. But someone that doesn't know me would think, and with the culture going on now, would immediately be like, oh, well, you're a racist. And it's like, how?
Yeah.
Because it's probably true. You know what I mean? Like they literally eat cats there. I'm just saying.
No, don't even get me started about Wuhan Marketplace.
Yeah.
I'm cats, serious. Bats, dogs. We go to Korea, you got Boishing-tong,
I don't even want to know what that is.
It's dogs too. Yeah, but
I don't even want to know.
But the thing is, you go over there and
in Spanish we say mierda con queso.
Yeah. It depending on the culture you grew up in, there are certain things that you just eat. You don't think of it as a pet. You don't think of it as part of a family. It's food.
Well, you remember
food.
What's that movie with Chow Yun-Fat and Marky Mark? Replacement Killers? Is that it? It was one of those. There was
one. He did Replacement Killers, and then the other one was Bulletproof Monk.
No, that's the one with Stifler.
Right.
No, it's Chow Yun-Fat and Marky Mark. I can't remember. It was late 90s, early 2000s, but that scene, it reminds me of it. He goes, they're cops. And they're on the case, and they're in the car, and he's eating something with some chopsticks, right? Chow Yun-Fat is. And he looks right at Marky Mark. I think it was Marky Mark. And he looks right at him. He says, you want to be Chinese? He goes, you got to eat some nasty shit. And he's eating whatever the hell, they're in Chinatown, in whatever city the movie was set in. But he's eating, whatever the fuck he was eating.
Right.
That reminds me of that.
But that's the thing, in Korea, I go down, we go out in the Ville on the evenings and on the weekends, and we'd eat the street food.
Right, yeah.
You'd eat the street food.
That's how Mexico was.
Deep fried, whatever. You didn't ask what the meat was because it was deep fried and it was batter covered.
Yeah, it's good.
We'd joke about it being rat on a stick and, move on. There's probably chicken because,
Hopefully.
But, it was whatever mystery meat it was.
Totally. Just wash it out. What's that beer they have in Korea?
No, you're talking soju, and that's not beer.
No, they have a. Don't they have a? They have a beer, but they probably. I don't know if they drink it there, but they sell it here. But it's Korean beer.
Okay.
I saw it at what's the marts on the base? You know, like the Air Force bases, they have the marts. What are those things called?
PX,
PX stores. Thank you. Yeah. So
NEX if you're Navy.
when I lived in Albuquerque, Kirtland Air Force Base was right up the street from when I was going to UNM. It was right up the street from our apartment. And so our buddy, he was Korean, as a matter of fact. His mom was Korean. His dad fought in Korea. He had an ID to get us onto the base. So we used to go to the PX store to go buy beer. Bunch of college kids, right? Because you don't pay tax.
Right, you don't pay tax.
Yeah, and it's cheaper. So we used to go out to the base, to Kirtland, all the time. We'd call Conway. His name was Rob Conway. We'd call him up.
Right.
My roommate's name was Rob, but then Conway. We'd call Conway and be like, hey, we need beer. And he was like 23. And like I was only 19 and he was 18. So it was like, we'd call Rob and be like, hey, we need beer. Take us out to the fucking PX. So he'd take us out to the store on the thing, and you got whatever you want. But we got a Korean beer, I remember one time. And I can't remember the name of it. Because they had, dude, you know, you went to college. You know how it is. Well, I guess you were in the military when you were at that age. But we drank a lot. My roommate's from Wyoming.
Yeah.
That's all they do there.
Yeah.
So he's one of these guys like, we're getting this beer tonight, that one, this one, this one, this one, you know. So we'd get all these different beers. And so we had like this in our kitchen, right? We had the bottles of like, and I mean, we just like, well, I haven't had that one. Let's get that one.
Right.
I've had some of the worst fucking beer in my life hanging out with those guys.
Of course you did.
Yeah. Well, you know, it's like doing the old Chicago World Beer Tour.
Right.
Like, I don't want to drink a freaking pear cider. I want to drink beer. Like, you know. But we used to drink a lot of the beer there, but it was the Korean beer.
Right.
So switching gears a little.
Okay.
Like, very interesting stuff. Like, I've been learning quite a bit because, again, you know, like, there's only so much stuff you can research.
Right.
And I like it when people have actually been places that, you know, can tell you like, this is what we did. So the Senate campaign, obviously you didn't win the seat.
Right.
But for being a libertarian candidate, and explain to people if they don't know, and this is actually for me too. Obviously we have Republicans, we have Democrats.
Right.
A lot of people mistake me for being a Republican.
I don't know why.
And I'm not.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know why. I know totally why, but I'm really not one. I'm really not one at all. They, as far as I'm concerned, they can all kick rocks. All these career
they all
people.
need to kick rocks.
Well, all these career people, especially.
Yeah.
So a libertarian, define.
Libertarian. Our primary mission in life is to take over government so we can leave you alone.
Oh, cool.
That's really the basics of it.
Is that the true definition of the word liberal?
No. Reason why is because liberal has almost an exclusively economic policy term. So when you
I
hear
just mean the word, not the party association. Just the word liberal to me means somebody who's just cool with doing their thing and leaving people alone.
No, I don't think so. Okay. There are some differences in it because you got the libertarian and you have liberal. And for some reason, there's been a divergence at some point. But the original roots of the whole libertarian philosophy really go back to 1776, French Revolution, Proudhon, a couple of the others, way back then. A couple of them, used to get into debates with Marx about the best way to approach and deal with different things.
With Karl Marx?
Yeah, Karl Marx of all things. Because Karl Marx, despite the way that his version of communism ended up getting adopted by some extremely authoritarian figures like Mao and Stalin and Lenin. There were an awful lot of other philosophers that went the other way with the Marxism as far as saying, every individual owns their own labor. They can do with it what they want. There shouldn't be this collectivization of the labor,
right.
To be democratically decided upon. No, every individual, through freedom of association, should be able to own, the rights of their labor.
Okay.
So you saw an awful lot of people that were taking Marxist philosophies and going very no masters idea with it. And that's ultimately what the root of the libertarian movement is. It's like, no, we have personal freedoms, we have personal right. The natural rights, the natural law, and the natural law is you respect me, I'll respect you, and as long as we agree, as long as we consent to the exchange, everything is cool.
Seems easy.
Yeah.
Seems fair.
And it goes clear back to like I said, discussions between Marx and, all of those philosophers at the time, which is really interesting because I actually get into this discussion a couple of times. Somebody goes, well, how many of you are really hardcore Marxists? How many? And it's like, look, nobody's a Marxist these days. Okay. Marx's ideas existed back in, 1840, 1850.
Right.
They don't exist today. Reason why is because Marx was an egocentric, Eurocentric, racist, homophobic, check. He was.
He was just an all-around terrible person.
He was just an all-around terrible person.
Yeah.
And here we have all of these neo-Marxists coming out going, Marx would appreciate my pronouns. No, he wouldn't. Marx was never about the pronouns thing. So let's just accept that neo-Marxism, modern Marxism has nothing to do. And if you ever actually meet a fundamentalist Marxist, the two of you will never be able to agree on anything.
Okay.
So you start getting these ideas of what's going on. Well, and so many people are so divorced from the original concepts of both libertarianism, Marxism, all of the different isms, from that time frame, because the technology is different today.
Right.
The technology, the communication, the styles, what we're able to produce from a single individual at any given time. And think about what you can do today with a 3D printer.
A lot.
Right. And you no longer need to go to a gunsmith, with $10,000 worth of tools in order to get a custom firearm.
Right.
Somebody downloads a program, plugs it into the 3D printer, and boom, you got a lower receiver.
Wow.
If you know somebody who's able to build a bigger 3D printers, and they have 3D printers right now that build concrete castles.
Wow.
Yeah, just program it in and boom, 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 So what we're able to do today as far as productive capability,
right,
is so different from what was going on in the time of Marx as far as right to labor, right to intellectual property, all of those things. You can't actually look at them and go, well, was Marx right or wrong? Well, maybe Marx was right for the culture and time in Europe that he existed in, but it's not so appropriate anymore.
Right.
We need to find some other way to balance. Another problem I got, especially from the other side of the house, is scarcity. Okay? Most markets are based off of scarcity, supply and demand. If there's not a large enough supply, the demand goes higher, and only those people who can afford to pay for the higher demand get the supply.
Right.
Okay, except then you step back and you go, well, wait, how does that apply in America? Because right now, on average, we throw away 40% of the food that's created in America on a daily basis.
Isn't that amazing?
Right.
Yeah.
We have kids right now that are going to go to bed hungry tonight.
Yes, we do.
And we threw away 40% of the food that we produced today.
That's amazing to me.
And it's like, but there's scarcity, man.
Right.
Oh, there's not.
There's really not.
No, there's not. It's manufactured. The scarcity today is manufactured.
By who?
Good question. Okay, one of the things I look at right now, our food supply chain, it got busted back in March, right? Remember that?
Yeah.
We ran out of toilet paper. We started running low on meat. We started running low on a number of different things.
Yeah.
Everybody's going, oh my God, we're going to starve. And then there was the run on the stores, and then the stores took 2 weeks to replenish it because
they could.
Well, not because they could, but our supply chain was busted.
No,
because over the last 10 years, we created this just-in-time supply chain.
Right.
We knew exactly what the demand is going to be at any given time, and
stock accordingly.
We worked it back so that we never have anything in the warehouse. We save space because nothing's ever in the warehouse because we're producing everything just in time.
Right, I get it, yeah.
So when there's a run on toilet paper where all the shelves are emptied and they're not being replaced at the same rate, we realize, there's nothing in the warehouse as far as toilet paper goes. So you're going to have to wait till 2 weeks for our just-in-time supply chain to catch up with all of you guys who decided that you needed to use, 30 rolls of toilet paper this week.
Right. Which nobody does.
Nobody did. There are literally people with storage sheds full of toilet paper that, the supply chain's fixed now, at least as far as toilet paper. We managed to catch up.
Right.
So they bought all of this against future sales.
Right.
And they got a storage shed full of toilet paper that they're never going to be able to use.
Right. But if there's another shortage, they could sell it at a marked up price.
They could.
That's just me thinking of business-wise. That's what I would do.
But
Capitalize
that's speculation. That's speculation.
Right.
When is the next time the supply chain's going to bust, especially with regards to toilet paper, to where you can get away with that kind of markup?
Right.
Is it going to be this year? Is it going to be next year? Is it going to be 5 years down the road?
Right.
How much is that storage going to cost you over that time?
Right.
Before that purchase can be marked up enough to actually create a profit.
Right.
So it's dealing with the speculation whether or not you're willing to pay the interim costs.
Right. I get it. Yeah.
Which is one of the reasons why we created the just-in-time supply chain.
Right. That makes
because we didn't
sense.
want to pay the storage on this stuff.
Right. Okay.
I'm
with you.
So we have this entire system. The market's completely busted. We're down to food. Now, in the United States right now, there are 3 corporations that own the bulk of the food production from farm to
table.
Well,
I guess
it breaks down. So you got more than that. You got 3 that take it from the farm to where it is repackaged, redistributed, recreated. Okay. So I don't even know the names of these 3 corporations because they almost deal exclusively with the farm as well as the creators who produce it. So after those 3 distribute it to about 10. Those 10 are like General Mills, Procter & Gamble, Ralston, Post. Those 10 distributors that you see named on every shelf in every grocery store in America. Okay, so literally you got 3 corporations that pick all this stuff, take it to a central processing location. From there, it gets distributed to the 10 who recreate it and repackage it and then ship it back out to the store. So you got this entire situation where literally 3 corporations control 95% of the food that the United States eats.
Wow.
And we broke it this year.
Wow.
We broke it.
That's crazy.
That's
so crazy.
Now, there are some good things that happened from that because the reason why is when we broke it, we realized, it is broke. It's very fragile.
Yeah.
So we started seeing an awful lot of farmers and entrepreneurs start to shorten the food supply chain. Okay. We had people that grabbed dump trucks and they picked up all the surplus potatoes that weren't being sold to the restaurants anymore, picked them up and busted them to Texas.
Nice.
So here was all of these potatoes that were just going to go to waste, and somebody found a dump truck. You know what? We're going to take potatoes to Texas because Texas needs potatoes.
Yeah. I bet they made a lot of money, too.
Yeah. Well, I think it was actually a gift. It was a donation.
Oh, really?
Because they can't, because of the contracts, the contract obligation.
Oh, I see.
The farmers couldn't actually sell to somebody who was paying for it.
I get it.
But what they did was they created a situation where people could just show up and pick it up.
Wow.
Yeah. So there was a lot of this mutual aid going on, and the mutual aid was being distributed. But the thing is, we're also seeing things right now, and this is one of the things I like. Simplot has made arrangements with Winco.
Oh, okay.
Okay, we have a major meat processing facility here in the state of Idaho, which is interesting because it goes back to our prison labor thing.
The one out in Kuna, right?
Right, the one out in Kuna. We actually have prison labor that goes out and works out there.
Do. The meatpacking plant.
Meatpacking plant for about $9, $10 an hour.
From what I've heard, they do pretty good.
Yeah.
The prisoners do. I've heard, and I don't know how true this is, but I've heard this from several different sources that prisoners literally come home every week or come home every month, I think it was, with like $2 to $3 grand.
Well, yeah, if they're out there. Yeah.
They actually make that as prisoners.
Yeah.
Every month.
Well, that's like the meatpacking plant. They pay them $9-10 an hour.
Yeah.
But that's one of those other things is that's prison labor.
Right.
Okay. Could you imagine if that was a local union out there working the packing plant?
Oh, Jesus.
You know, every one of those spots being filled by a local prisoner who's in there for moving drugs.
Right.
Could be filled by a union worker who's making $25 an hour.
Right, but they're getting away with paying much less,
right.
Obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, they're paying them $9 an hour, and they show up, they do their work, and they go back to their house, and they go back to their cell at the pen.
Yep.
And, but again, they're out there working that meatpacking plant, and that's part of the thing is Simplot's running it through that meatpacking plant, and it turns around and goes back to Winco, rather than us taking all of that meat and sending it to a processing plant in Nebraska,
right.
Just so Nebraska can turn around and ship it back.
Right. And is that meat local too?
Yeah.
Then?
It's local. It's grown here in Idaho. It's processed in Idaho.
Everything.
It's turned around and sent to Winco, which is, of course, in Idaho.
And Winco's Idaho-based?
Yeah,
also?
Winco is Idaho-based. And the beautiful thing is Winco is employee-owned.
Correct, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
I do know that.
It's an employee co-op.
Yes.
I mean, literally, it is communism incarnate in the state of Idaho because it is an employee-owned, company.
Right.
This is literally the workers.
Right.
This is what they were talking about when they were talking about communism. The worker owns the right to their labor. All the profits from that go right back to the workers, which, of course, live in our community.
Right.
So the money stays here local.
That whole thing is local.
It is. That whole process is local.
That's cool.
Our meat packing is local, even though it goes back to the prisons.
Right.
Our beef is harvested local, so that's local ranchers. And it's being distributed through a local grocery outlet
chain.
Where all of the employees participate in the profits from the company. So all of that money stays here in our economy.
That's a good system.
It is. Whereas if you shop at Walmart, I'm going to judge you because all of that profit from Walmart's going back to Arkansas.
Yes, it is. What's that, Bentonville?
Yeah.
Yeah. I lived in Fort Smith, actually, for a year. So my first year of college. It's right on the Oklahoma border off I-40.
Yeah.
Yeah, whoa. It's 45 minutes from Fayetteville, which is where U of A is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. If you've ever been to an SEC football game?
No, I haven't.
Good Lord. Dude, they can fit like 80 to 100 grand in the stadium.
Right.
There's that many people in the parking lot drinking Busch Light and grilling beef. I'm telling you right now.
Yeah.
I think it was LSU Arkansas was the game we went to.
Right.
Oh, and this was 1998.
Yeah.
Oh, dude.
Well, that's football zone.
Oh, it was amazing.
I
had more fun out in the parking lot. We didn't make it into the stadium.
No, you don't want to make it into the stadium because everybody's already got the big screen off the back of their, RV.
You already know.
You can literally sit out back and you're watching the game while drinking one because you can't take the drinks into the stadium.
And then if you do want to get a beer in there, it's like, and I mean, back then it wasn't, it was like probably $4 or $5 back then, but now it's like, what,
10,
what
15,
do they charge?
yeah.
Like, yeah. But yeah, so that's crazy.
It's got, the Boise State tailgate's got nothing.
No, nothing.
Nothing on a Southern tailgate.
No, they don't even know.
No.
It's amazing. They're cool.
Yeah.
That's cool for here.
Yeah.
Oh, it's cool. Well, see, this is what I tell people, too, about, like, college football is, you remember the year, everybody's favorite or anti-favorite Kaepernick when he was at the Nevada, right? And they beat BSU that year.
Yeah.
And I took Nevada, actually. I won some money on that game. Well, the point margin, the point differential in the 3 prior games was 18 points of victory for BSU. And I was like, dude, this year they're not going to win. That was the year of Kellen Moore, if you remember, and they were really good. I mean, nobody's denying BSU had a squad that year. But they would have, even had they beat Nevada, they still wouldn't have played for the national title. And this is why I always tell people that. And they're like, oh, you hate BSU? And I'm like, no, I don't hate BSU. I went to college.
Nobody's ever going to let BSU take a national title.
They're not going to take it until they have a stadium where they can fill 80 grand right?
Yeah.
Minimum. You
Yeah.
know, like an LSU or an Arkansas. And
we don't have it, and we have
Right.
no plans on creating it.
right. So they're never going to win the big one. I'm sorry.
You know,
college
Marlene-
football is
yeah.
all economics. Period.
Marlene Trump is not going to build up that stadium because sports is not her thing. Idaho is not going to build that stadium.
Right.
Because if you go back and you actually take a look at the way the Idaho State legislature is responsible for the funding of public schools in this state,
Yeah.
okay, you will never see Idaho State legislature cut loose enough money to create
I get it.
that kind of program. Reason why is because we're anti-funding of public education. That's what that is. It's public education.
Correct.
Every one of those schools like OSU, Arkansas, Georgia, all of those
Any of
schools,
them.
Texas,
Alabama, Texas.
okay, the sports program
Yeah.
is not profitable.
Really?
No, it's never been profitable. You basically have to get the school to make up the difference in the cost in the program in order for the program to achieve.
I get it.
Okay, so
Yeah.
when Boise State says, well, we're not getting a large enough part of the operations budget, you know, Nevada gets a chunk of the operations budget. You know, it's just they're going to get 50% of whatever the state cuts loose to run their sports program. The sports programs are not profitable.
I get
They
it,
never
I get it,
have
yeah.
been. You know, it's whether or not the state legislature, with regards to these public institutions,
Wants to give them
wants
money to allocate it towards them.
to allocate it.
Yeah.
You know, it's because let's admit it, college sports is about the closest a lot of these states are ever going to get to a pro team.
Pro team, yeah.
You know, Boise
Well,
State.
you know, like
yeah,
UT and down in Austin, they have their own freaking network.
yeah,
They have the Texas Longhorns freaking television channel.
Uh-huh.
My parents live in Austin. They live right outside Austin.
yeah.
So, and I knew that from before. So, but you get what I'm saying. So,
Yeah.
like, they generate a lot of money.
They do,
Yeah.
but they still don't generate a profit.
I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah. I totally get what you're saying.
You know, and we will never reallocate enough from Boise State operating funds to create
That culture.
that culture.
Yeah, you're right. See, and that's
Yeah.
what I always tell people because it is economics.
Now, to be fair,
Pure.
Idaho cheats.
Do they? Okay.
Yes. Okay. So we all know. What was it? Was it Julia? No, it was Miss Morrison.
Ann Morrison
Yes, Ann Morrison.
Park.
Yeah, Ann Morrison Park.
Yeah.
Okay, her husband, you know, was real big. Created an awful lot of money. Well, of course, he was part of Morrison Knudsen, so
Right,
they
I
got
was
their own foundation.
Just asked that. Yeah.
Well, one of the things that Ann Morrison did was she created a foundation. And we have, through Boise State University, a scholarship program
Okay.
specifically for Hawaiians.
Really?
Yes.
Why specifically for Hawaiians?
I don't know why.
That doesn't make any sense.
But that was the thing
actually.
for Ann Morrison, was something she was involved in. You know, she created this scholarship fund so that individuals from Hawaii
Would come here.
would come here to get their education and then go back.
That makes no sense.
Well, it did to her at the time.
Well,
But
she-
that's
yeah.
foundation. That's philanthropy.
Yeah. I was just gonna
Okay.
say that's some Bruce Wayne shit right there.
Yeah, that's some Bruce Wayne. But that's philanthropy. So, what does the Boise State sports program do with it?
They recruited players?
They recruit a bunch of Samoans to line the linemen.
All right, that's smart. See,
Yeah.
that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah,
me-
but that's what we did in order to boost
Yeah.
the ability of our team.
That's so
We used a scholarship that was intended to educate in order to recruit these 300-pound linemen.
wow. It just seems so ass backwards to me.
Welcome to second and third tier effects.
Right?
Yeah.
Welcome to fucking Idaho. Jesus Christ. Well, you know what I'm saying? I mean,
Yeah.
come on, man. Like, why not just? Well, it's kind of like this one. Like, you know, I laughed at we read a lot. We look at a lot of stuff. We got a kid in school, the whole bit.
Mm-hmm.
The $86 million they got for the schools. You know,
Right.
I went on a rampage on that one online because, you know, $48 million of it was for technology alone.
Sounds about right.
Yeah.
Welcome to the
so-
Luna laws.
Yeah. So, but they cut my sister-in-law is a teacher out
Right.
here for the last 20 years.
They
And-
cut her salary in order to pay for the technology,
Right.
which ended up being embezzled by Luna's sister-in-law.
Oh, Jesus Christ! This gets deeper than I even knew.
Well, I mean that was the thing.
You know this. You know that they've since I've lived here, I can pretty much guarantee you that they've cut the education budget every year that I've been here. Roughly.
Roughly.
Yeah.
Well,
May not have been every
okay.
year, but
Here's the thing. As a per student,
yeah.
okay, the budget has gone down every year.
Okay, that's a great way of putting it.
Yet at the same time, our legislature has managed to allocate nearly an extra million. You know, we have been growing so fast
Right.
that no matter how much we invest into it, every year we still see less money per student.
Right. And then we're still ranked, what, 48th?
48th,
Public
49th,
education?
51st. Well, okay. That's an interesting thing. Reason why is because we're not 51st, or we're not even down there. We're close to like about 38th in public education as far as quality of public education that we create.
Okay.
Okay.
That's still pretty low.
We're still 50 in per student expenditures.
I get it. Okay.
Okay.
So there are
So
subcategories to this.
There are subcategories to that. Now, the thing is when we talk Reclaim Idaho and what they're saying is, yes, we are 51st in spending per student in the United States.
How are we 51st?
Or we count D.C. as a state.
Oh, the good old not a
Yeah.
state.
Not a state,
I was just saying, 'cause
but
Puerto
you know,
Rico's still a commonwealth.
Puerto Rico's still a commonwealth. Don't even get me into that. Reason why is because there are more people living in Puerto Rico than there are in Idaho. Idaho is
I
state,
know.
Puerto Rico is not.
Well, they don't want to pay federal income tax down there either.
Well, they also got screwed during this last hurricane. So
Yeah.
sooner or later, they're going to have to make up their mind. Do they want to be their own independent country?
Or
Do
do
they
they
want to
wanna be a
continue to be
state?
a territory, or do they want to continue, or do they actually want to become a state and have a say?
Right.
Yeah, but that's a different issue.
Yes, it is.
But we start talking about quality of education. Quality of education, we're still about 38th, and yeah, that's below the 50% mark. That's below the median.
Yeah.
But that goes back to the situation where, and one of my platform issues, of course, is the Department of Education, the United States Department
Yes,
of
perfect.
Education. Okay, 1979 was when it was created. Jimmy Carter started it.
Right.
Problem is it didn't actually come to fruition until during Ronald Reagan.
Okay.
Okay, so here you have this good Democrat idea, and it's immediately being targeted for being cut by the Republicans, only it's now a cabinet position, which represents political favors. Okay,
Right.
I can now give a cabinet position to somebody, Betsy DeVoe, who doesn't know squat,
Right.
because I don't really care about education, but she's on the cabinet, so,
Because I owed a favor to a guy for a guy
Yeah.
for this, for that, and the other.
Exactly.
Right.
So we're back into that situation where they now have a cabinet position
With a less than qualified individual.
with a less than qualified individual.
I said, so I'm glad you said that. So, because that's very much where I was leading to. But you're really smart, so you say a lot of information. That's good. I love it. Like I'm sitting, like I told you, this is like school for me. Like this is what's
Okay.
cool about doing
Yeah.
stuff like this. I get to talk to some awesome people. You know what I mean? On your platform as running for Congress, what are some of the things that are very important to you? And it's a two-tier question.
Okay.
So what are, let's say, what are 3 issues that are very important to you just as a candidate and as a person, as a politician? And what are 3 issues that, directly relate to those as how it's going now? Like those same 3 issues.
Okay.
So like you
got it.
mentioned education as
Right.
one. So,
Okay. So let's go ahead and roll that back, and we'll start with number 1.
okay.
Okay, my first priority is bring our troops home.
Okay.
Period. We've been in Afghanistan for 19 years. We've been in Iraq for 17 years. Okay, we still
Yes,
do
we
not
have.
have a clearly defined mission complete statement.
Okay.
This is the war that was never meant to end.
Correct.
Okay, we have politicians that are perpetuating it. We've had people in the Senate and Congress. Trump says, I'm going to bring our troops home from Afghanistan. They actually ran a vote through, less than a week after he said that said, no, you won't.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Who did that?
I don't know, but the thing is it was both houses.
So it was the House and the Senate?
Yeah, it was the House and the Senate. So this was a bipartisan deal that said, no, you're not bringing troops home from Afghanistan yet.
Really?
Yes.
Because they're still making money.
Because someone is still making money.
Okay.
Someone's sponsor is still making money. Enough people's sponsors are still making money that they were able to get both houses to come to an agreement that it was not time to pull troops out of Afghanistan.
So Trump wants to bring them home. They say no, and he can't do anything about it.
Right, and that's one of the things. But you start taking a look at the way the DOD is managing things, and I have to suspect Trump's intent as far as bringing troops home. Because every 6 months, every year, we get this big thing. We're bringing the troops home. We're bringing the troops home. Yet the numbers don't change.
Right.
Okay? Yeah, you just brought home one unit and replaced them with another. Okay? We're playing the shell game right now because he's just decided to move more troops into Syria.
Okay.
So it's like we still have the same number of troops overseas right now as we did, back in 2015.
Okay.
Okay,
so who's ultimately responsible for that, though?
Congress is.
Right.
They really are. Reason why is because you have, and this goes back to Senator Jim Risch. Senator Jim Risch is on the Senate Foreign Relations Committee.
Okay.
Okay, he actually has an extreme amount of influence on whether or not we continue to maintain a state of relations with certain individuals.
Right.
Okay, one of those happens to be whether or not we continue to maintain troops in Afghanistan and Iraq and several of these other locations.
And he's very influential, Jim Risch is?
Well, he's the Senate committee chairman.
Yeah.
And now he sits on that same committee with individuals like Lindsey Graham and Rand Paul and of course his Democrat counterpart. So but he's still a committee chairman.
Right. So he's the head honcho of this committee.
Okay. He's the one who, decides who gets to speak, what order they get to speak, whether or not a bill that crosses his desk is actually going to be heard, or the overtones that are associated with it. So as far as foreign relations go, Jim Risch is the man.
Gotcha.
And
he still currently holds this position?
Yes. Okay. He still currently holds that position.
Okay. Until
this election. And unless Paulette Jordan or Natalie Fleming beat him, he's going to continue to hold
Paulette Jordan,
that.
she ran for governor, right?
Yeah, she ran for governor 2 years ago. This year she's running for Jim Risch's Senate seat.
Gotcha. Okay.
Hey, and there's an independent who's running for that seat as well, Natalie Fleming.
And that's the other woman that you mentioned. Okay.
Yeah.
And she's just an independent?
She's an independent.
She has no party
No
ties
party affiliation
whatsoever?
whatsoever. She's an independent.
Got it.
But she's running for that seat. And nice thing about that is she is an independent, which means she's not beholden to either the Republican or the Democrat Party if she ends up in that seat. The House leadership or the Senate leadership can come to her and say, you're going to do this. And she goes, on whose dime? I got here without your help.
Yeah, no shit. Huh?
I came in bloody, I can leave bloody.
So, yeah, you're not wrong. So your goal of bringing troops home, how would you as an individual say, let's say you win. Right. Let's best case scenario this. Let's say you win. I actually kind of hope you do, to be perfectly honest with you. You know what I mean? Just because, again, like people think I'm like right wing and Republican and all this. Fuck all those dudes, in my opinion. You know what I mean? I want to see someone go in and do this.
Well, here's the thing. As a congressman, I go in and I take a look at the situation.
Yeah.
Okay, first thing I need to understand is, one, I am part of a team of, 435 individuals.
Others than yourself?
Yeah.
Okay.
You got all the other congressmen, all across the United States. But one of the first things I do is I introduce a bill to repeal the authorization of use of military force.
Okay.
Okay, there are two big ones. There's the one that we issued in 2001 that authorized the war on terror in Afghanistan.
Okay.
And there's the other one in 2003 that authorized operations in Iraq.
Okay.
Okay, I go in, I repeal those.
Right.
Okay. Once that passes, once that gets signed by the president, we no longer have the authorization for use of military force in Afghanistan or Iraq.
So we have to withdraw
We have to withdraw the troops.
So how do you go about getting that? And that's my question exactly. So how do you go about getting, say, like, this is your idea, you're the champion of this bill, right?
Right.
How do you go about getting support in order to do that, being a libertarian candidate?
Well, I have a certain amount of advantage. Reason why is because I am in between both parties.
Okay,
I'm not part of either of their systems, which means I can literally go to members of both parties and say, your constituency wants peace in America.
Right.
They don't want to see young American soldiers. They don't want to see servicemen, their sons and daughters, go over to Afghanistan or Iraq and die anymore.
So you're garnering support from
I can garner support from both sides.
and everybody.
Anybody and
you
everybody.
don't have one of the
whether it's Republican, and I don't have Nancy Pelosi standing over my shoulder saying
"Don't
you
do
can't
that."
do that.
Gotcha.
No,
Okay.
I'm a libertarian. I can go and I can ask anybody I want.
And that's how that works.
And that's
a lot
how
of
that
people don't
works,
realize that too. Because I was watching, we were watching something the other day about how some of these politicians, when they go in, right, it's just like, hey kid, this is how this, and obviously you're not a kid, but hey kid,
literally
this is how
they
this
show
is
up
gonna work.
and they say, I want to do this, and Nancy Pelosi goes, no, you don't.
Yeah.
Well, yes, I do. Do you want to be elected again?
Right.
Do you want to live to see tomorrow?
Yeah. No shit. That's scary to think about.
So
okay, number one then on your docket is troops.
Right.
Being a former soldier, that
right.
makes perfect sense.
Absolutely.
What's number two?
Descheduling of marijuana.
So making it, decriminalizing it.
Right.
in
Decriminalize.
essence?
I want it off of the books.
Because
I
when
want
it's
it off of
Schedule
the
1?
schedule. It's Schedule 1 right now.
Yeah.
So if I go in and I deschedule it, I remove it from the federal books.
Nice.
Okay, this allows people to grow their own medicine now.
Right.
And the beautiful thing about descheduling marijuana is how many different areas it affects. One,
Lot.
mass incarceration vanishes
Yes.
overnight because everybody who's sitting in prison right now on a federal drug charge
For marijuana.
for marijuana,
yes.
well, it's unfortunate because I need Joe Jorgensen to do this. Joe Jorgensen is the Libertarian candidate, of
president.
course, yes.
Correct.
But
I follow her on Twitter.
Yes, her day one is pardon all nonviolent criminal offenses.
Okay.
First of which is, of course, marijuana.
Right.
Okay, do you know how many? We're like 60% of our federal prison population is based off of federal marijuana trafficking charges.
Right, because they cross state lines.
Because they cross state lines.
Right.
So literally, she can pardon 60% of the federal
Yeah.
prison population, on day one.
And a lot of people don't know that too. Like, what makes a crime federal is when it comes to something like dealing weed or just dealing drugs in general. You cross the state line. I mean, it's.
Well, but see, that's the funny thing is we live here in Boise, up in Coeur d'Alene, Literally, it's legal right across the border, right across the border.
Well, I mean, here in Boise, we have Oregon.
Right here
there.
in
It's
Boise,
an
we
hour
have
away.
Oregon.
Yeah.
Literally.
Isn't that crazy? Like we can drive an hour.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
But the thing is, nearly 200 people a day commit a federal felony by driving across that border
and
getting their stuff and coming back with it.
Yeah. You're not kidding.
Yeah, a federal felony.
Yeah, that's crazy.
100 people, 100, 200 people a day. Because you count the cars that are in the parking lot.
Right.
At the dispensaries there.
Right. And they're all Idaho plates.
They're all Idaho plates. Every one of them is 30 minutes away from committing a federal felony.
You're right. You're not wrong. We actually talked about this, I think, on Facebook one day.
Yeah.
About the thing. Well, see, here's my issue, and this is just my personal issue with the nonviolent drug offenses.
Yeah.
We have to be very selective on this, and I know this. I just know this, right?
Yeah.
So, well, I mean, everybody that knows me knows I've done time, right?
Yeah.
I did quite a stretch too. That's another animal. However, I saw this with my own two eyes. A lot of these, not all, but a lot of these non-violent drug offenders, especially, and I'm going to be very specific with who I talk about.
They pled out of a violent crime with
No.
Okay.
No. I'm going to be very specific who I talk about. People that deal pot and smoke pot, I don't care.
Right.
I think everybody should smoke pot, personally. Like, I don't smoke pot, but I think everybody should.
They should be able to.
Yeah,
they should be
at
able
least have
to.
the choice.
Everybody should try it once, just so they understand what's going on with life. It's like
because you can drink
a beer.
Drink
a beer,
in trouble for
smoke a
drinking.
doobie.
You know what I mean? Like, which then again, that's another story. But here's my deal: a lot of these guys that with the meth and the heroin, specifically, I'm going to tell you right now that most of the guys that are in prison for those things deserve and belong to be in prison because of what they do when they're not in prison.
Right. Well, but the thing is what they do when they're not in prison goes beyond Those are violent offenses. Those
But
are
they don't always get
violations of human
caught.
rights.
They don't.
No,
always
they don't get caught.
And that's what I'm saying. We have to be
Yeah.
very careful when we
Yeah.
describe what a non-violent drug offense is. And that was my point to you.
Yeah.
It's hard to talk on the comments on
Exactly.
a Facebook thread, but face to face, I can explain it much better. So and here's my deal, especially with the meth and the heroin guys, because these are the same dudes that'll get out, right? And they'll do good for a while. I
Yeah.
watched it happen. They'll do good, and then they'll move into somebody's house or into a house next door where somebody's 17-year-old daughter's next door. And then before you
Yeah.
know it, one of their buddies shows up, has a bag of dope, and they're starting to get high. And then when they get high, they don't think, right?
And then you got a rape charge. You got
There-
sexual violence.
Well, they may,
but the only
they may
thing
not
they
get
compress,
caught, though, for that.
Yeah, they may not get caught for that. But what ends up happening is, it gets reported, but the only thing they can nail them for is the distribution charge.
Is the
Yeah.
drugs or the just simple
Absolutely.
possession?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that was
And then
where
they
I
get
was-
nailed on the 3 strikes law.
Yeah.
But see, that's one of the things where we start getting into trouble as far as human rights go, because we do have people who go out. The cops and the DAs get lazy.
Right.
Literally, they could have done the investigation. They could
Yes.
have actually arrested them for the violent crime of rape or false imprisonment or kidnapping or sex trafficking.
Right.
They literally could have found the material.
And they just didn't do
They
it.
just didn't, because they had an easy trafficking, easy
they
drug
had an
trafficking
easy slam
charge.
dunk case.
Easy slam
Yeah.
dunk, and they went, okay, rather than spending the next 3 months building a case for sex trafficking or
prostitution
or one of these other
sex
things,
offenses or whatever.
let's just go ahead,
Yeah.
take the easy out and send them down the river for 3 years on a mandatory minimum for possession.
Right. Well, they don't.
Okay.
They only have the mandatory minimums here on the heroin, and you have to have X amount of heroin with it. Like,
Well, they
what-
got the mandatory minimums for everything, but yeah, there is an X amount of minimum.
Yeah, they have
and it's
because
yeah.
for a simple possession, it's 7 years. It carries 7, and see, they
Yeah.
use the unified sentencing here, and they use it wrong, but that's another animal too. But what they do generally is that 7. A lot of these guys that get these possessions over and see, this is my other thing too with it.
Yeah, it's a 3 strikes law.
They have something similar. They have the habitual and the they call it the big bitch and the little bitch.
Right.
So that's what they call it. And
In
so,
prison, but yeah.
yeah, basically like you get like a life tail
Right.
with it. But what I'm saying is a lot of these guys, they don't even, and that's a separate charge.
Right.
Right. But they don't get charged with that always. But I'm telling you right now, I've seen a lot of these dudes, man. They've gotten busted 4, 5, 6, 7 times.
Yeah.
When I had my issues going on, and I got in trouble for drinking. Like,
Yeah.
That was all my shit was. But and again.
But
like,
it's 6 or 7 times, and what ends up happening is somebody goes in with a rape charge and says, you raped me, and they go
Right.
in and they do the initial search warrant, and they find the stuff and say, well, we can send them away for this in 2 weeks, or
right.
you got to stand up on, you got to go up on a stand, and we're going to cross-examine you and embarrass the holy,
Yeah.
And eventually they intimidate the witness into go, you know what, just
Yeah.
get
You're
him
not
out of my
wrong.
hair.
You're not wrong.
You know.
But when it comes to the weed,
Yeah.
like that's, I think, but I just wanted to make that a clear
Yeah.
distinction of like, because I see eye to eye with you on that 100%.
But one of the other things you look at is what exactly are those drugs being used for?
Right.
Now, most of the cases where we end up in a situation where, somebody's a weed user,
Yeah, they're not harming anybody.
they're not harming anybody.
That's a non-violent drug offender. to
But
me.
you got a black market dealer who knows he's about to run out of weed,
Right.
and he laces it
Yeah.
because
that's
he
messed up.
knows he's got access to meth.
Right.
And now the person needs the next thing because what they were getting, it's different now.
Yeah, I get you.
So you end up with that situation. Whereas one of the things, if we were to deschedule all of that, when was the last time your liquor store clerk
Oh, shit.
asked to have sex with your 6-year-old kid,
Right.
in order to sell you, what your fifth
Right.
whiskey?
Well, and I agree on the
and that's one of the
descheduling.
things with the descheduling.
Yeah, I
is
agree
we
with
now
that.
move it into a professional atmosphere where it's now controlled. Where if somebody makes that statement, you're
Yeah.
not an addict who's under scrutiny of law.
Right.
For your usage. And that's one of the problems we got right now, especially with regards to sex trafficking of minors.
Yes.
Okay, it's because of people who get hooked on meth, because of people who get hooked on heroin.
Yeah, they do. They get them hooked on drugs.
Yeah, you get them hooked on drugs, and now they got a black market dealer who's going, you know what? Kid's looking pretty cute.
Right.
You know, and next thing you know, you got 30-year-old mom trafficking 10-year-old daughter because that's the only way she's going to get her fix.
You're right.
You know, and that's how localized sex trafficking starts. That's, you know, and that's one of the things with descheduling that is that eliminates that particular venue of control for these abusers.
Right.
Yeah. Now, I agree. We need to do better as far as education goes, especially with meth and heroin, because of what those things do to your mind.
Yes, those are and the bath salts now.
The bath salts.
And holy vey.
You know, you got all of these different drugs out there that'll just do things that you can't recover from.
Yeah, they literally. I've seen it happen.
You know, literally,
it's scary.
You take it and you are never the same person ever again.
Yes, and especially when they IV use it.
Oh yeah,
they shoot it up.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I've literally seen it. I've seen people like, and the bath salt thing.
Yeah,
it's like, who are you? I don't even know who you are.
But the thing is,
gone.
They get involved with these because they run out of the other stuff, and they don't have any place other than that black market, and it's the only thing that their provider has left.
You remember in the 90s in France when they legalized heroin?
Yeah.
People could then go get it at the pharmacy.
Mm-hmm.
They got clean needles. They got clean dope.
Yeah.
Right? They went to work.
Mm-hmm.
They led productive lives. So I'm on board with that.
Yeah.
And that's my personal opinion. You know what I mean? Like I said, I leave a lot of my personal stuff out of this, but when it comes to that, like that's one thing I'm really big on, because we have to really look at that as a whole.
The thing is we got functional alcoholics,
functional addicts.
And functional addicts.
Well, the same thing. Functional alcoholics.
They are the same thing. Functional alcoholic, functional addict. They are the same thing. We have literally people who can use the drugs and still show up to work every day.
Yep.
Still function every day.
Yep.
You know, they may not be getting high just before they show up to work, but, you know, the second they're off work, you know,
they're getting high.
They're getting high.
Yep.
You know, but they're able to function in whatever skill set that they're responsible for.
Right.
Okay, these are your functional addicts.
Yep.
Okay. Now, the thing is you're still an addict.
Yeah, no matter how you slice it up. Yeah.
And sooner or later, you slip from functional into dysfunctional.
At some point, yeah.
At some point, you will. Alcoholics, it happens with everybody.
Has to.
You know, and part of that is, you know, trauma's the gateway.
You're right.
We all know trauma's the gateway. We use alcohol to escape trauma.
We don't. You'd be surprised. Well, so for instance, like I told you, I got in trouble for alcohol.
Yeah.
Right? And it took me myself to get away from that, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, I learned from, of all people, Russell Brand. I'm not joking. He's brilliant.
He is.
I learned about that from him, the trauma, what you just said.
Yeah.
And I really took a look at it and was like, wow. And I looked in my own life, right? And it was like, wow. Everything that I could think of that was like, holy shit, that's why I've been...
Every reason you drank.
Yeah.
Was because of trauma.
You're right. And you know what? Once I realized it, you know what I did? I quit drinking.
Well, yeah, because you didn't need to drink it. You understood the root of your problem, and you went, you know.
So
good.
that's why
I'm done with it.
Yeah, and that's why I'm very clear on that, because all these treatment programs are a bunch of horse shit, dude.
They are, because they don't deal with the root trauma.
Thank you. That's awesome. I'm really big on that. Like I said, like that's something I'm very passionate about personally.
Yeah.
Because I've gone through it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I've literally lived it, and I've suffered for it, and I've been broken down and slave labored. And see, this is something a lot of people don't know about me, is like that's how I know all the stuff about the prison camps and all that shit, because I've been there. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to tell you right the fuck right now, that shit is torture.
It is.
It's flat fucking torture. The lights come on at 5 a.m.
Okay.
every day.
You drink to deal with trauma.
Right.
Okay, you get in trouble because you got drunk.
Right.
Okay, next thing you know, you're being re-traumatized.
Right.
Day in
and day out.
Because they're not treating you for the initial trauma.
Nope.
You know, they're just keeping more. They're adding to it.
You're right.
So it's like most of our prisoners come out of prison with complex trauma because they got the trauma that got them in there in the first place, and then they get all the trauma added on top of it.
While they're there.
Being
in prison is a lot like being in the military, believe it or not.
I agree.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It is.
You know, one of the things I've talked with friends about, you know, is boot camp.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Boot camp is specifically created to traumatize you.
It is.
It is to rewrite all of your previous trauma and overlay it with new trauma so that you respond in a specific way under new stressors.
Yep.
So, not only do you have all the trauma that caused you to go into the military in the first place, now you got all of that military trauma on top of it.
Yeah.
And then they send you into a war zone, and,
Then you get that trauma.
And by the time you get out after 20, 25, 30 years, you got these layers of complex trauma that include failed relationships, divorces,
substance
abuse,
domestic
abuse,
name
the
it.
whole 9 yards, you name it. And it's the same thing with prisons.
You're right.
You had this initial trauma as a childhood that got you into prison, and now they're layering all of this stuff. If you had a relationship before you went into prison, chances are it failed while you were in prison.
Chances are.
If you got into a relationship while in prison, as soon as you got out, your wife pen pal,
right?
Well,
and that's the thing, too.
Changes the whole dynamic of your relationship.
A lot of the stuff that happens in there, they don't prepare people for reentry.
No, they don't.
You have to be really I'm fortunate because being an athlete, I have the mental fortitude, if you will, of being able to recalibrate, a lot quicker. I'm gonna tell you, when I got out, it took a while.
Yeah.
It was rough.
It's the same thing after, my last tour.
Right. Exactly.
Getting out and trying to readjust, being able to take the time and get into school and say,
Yep.
I'm in the process of rebuilding myself. I have the GI Bill. It's going to cover me for the next 2-3 years.
Yeah.
I'm going to get my degree.
That took a lot of stress off you.
And by that time, the financial responsibility while getting the GI Bill and going through school.
Yeah.
I was able to step back and go, okay, this is my transition time.
Right.
This is my ability to recreate myself and rebuild myself, and that includes getting an education that gets me out of the career field
that you were in, yeah.
That created,
I get it.
These layers of trauma. But the thing is, they don't teach you about that upon military exit.
Right. So there's no reentry from there as well.
They try, but they fail.
Right. Okay.
They
try in there. They
try. But the thing is the people who are teaching you have never been there.
Exactly.
So they don't understand what it is you need to lose
in order to gain. Yeah, I'm totally with you.
They don't know what
that's amazing
trauma they need to take away from you to better prepare you so you can go out into the world and be the person you were meant to be.
Well, and seeing there, too, I can tell you this, a lot of the stuff, it's basic shit, like writing a resume, filling out a job app.
Right.
And I had to do all that. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, dude, I know how to do this. I own a business. What I mean? But here's the thing. I'm the 1%.
Yeah. Exactly.
I was the 1%. It was really weird because a lot of these people didn't go to high school. They didn't graduate. A lot of people had to get their GED.
Yeah. While they were in.
Part of their, their
programming. And they didn't have the cognitive before they got in.
Yeah. Oh, and then it got worse.
And then they got worse because of the trauma that's heaped on it and the stressors.
Yep.
And they're trying to learn while under stress in prison.
Right.
And it just creates this series of dysfunction that makes it harder and harder to get past those hurdles.
And then that is why they all keep coming back over and over and over and over again. Isn't that nuts? Something
broke.
I think we're all right. That's crazy. Anyway, so your third issue, guys, we spent a lot of time on the second one, which is totally fine. I think that's actually really informative.
It's a good subject.
It's a great subject.
Yeah.
I'm very passionate about it as well. But what's your third thing that you would like to go in and see changed? Or you would like to champion change?
I sort of got two things, and they go hand in hand. Well, they don't go hand in hand. The first one, of course, is the Department of Education.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't think the Department of Education in the 40 years that it's been running, 40 years now, has done any good.
There we go.
There we go. Okay, just had to hit the right.
Yeah.
Okay.
My tables are a bitch.
But in the 40 years the Department of Education has been involved in
loan sharking.
loan sharking. Well, loan sharking, that's higher education. That's affected the way we do higher education.
Yeah.
But in addition to that, in the 40 years it's been involved, it's gone into the No Child Left Behind, the 1,000 Stars,
I know all
all of
about
these
it.
things. In the last 40 years, the United States Department of Education has done nothing but contribute to the decline of education in the United States.
I agree with you.
Okay? 40 years ago, they were teaching Latin in high school.
Really?
Yes.
That's amazing.
Now,
Wow.
upon graduation from high school, you got to take a remedial math class before you can start earning college credits.
Why?
Exactly.
Don't they know how to do math?
Not in today's high schools.
Are you fucking kidding me? Dude, we had to take trigonometry. Like, I graduated in 98, and my junior year I took trig. That was the hardest fucking math class I've ever taken in my life. God, that shit was hard.
But the thing is right now we are graduating people from high school who can't do basic English and basic math.
How are they graduating?
Because the United States federal government controls the purse strings. And as
All right, I'm
long
following you.
as
Okay.
the school
Yeah.
graduates a certain number of people, they will continue to get
Their
federal
money.
funds.
So they're just pushing people through.
They're just pushing people through.
Gotcha.
Okay, and it's a lowest common denominator education system.
You're right. Indoctrination system.
It's indoctrination. And I know there are an awful lot of people out there who listen to you who are big fans of Trump.
Yeah.
But when Trump came out with his idea if he's going to mandate patriotic education or he's not going to provide federal funds to certain schools in the United States if they don't adopt it, I was like, whoa.
Well, and that was in response to the 1619 project.
Yeah.
So, in
But the
perspective.
thing is the 1619 project and its indoctrination plan, as well as Trump's counter proposal with the mandatory patriotic education, it's like, dude, I don't want either of those.
Sure.
Where did this idea of mandated indoctrination, whether it's the patriotism or whatever? 1979 when we founded the U.S. Department of Education. That's how long they've been working on this indoctrination plan at federal level. Okay, reason why. Okay, you step back and you take a look at the education across the United States right now. Okay, it doesn't matter where you live. The schools teach the exact same thing everywhere in the United States.
Right.
Okay, you live in Marsing. Do you need to know how to assemble a car in a Ford shop?
In Detroit?
In Detroit?
Right.
No, you don't.
Marsing's more farming.
Marsing's farming.
Yeah.
You need to be supporting the 4-H or the Future Farmers of America,
Sure.
or some other sort of agricultural program.
So do you, having said all that, do you think that like localized, if you will, education is a better model?
Well, the thing is, I'm anti-federalist, period. So
I've gathered that,
everything is better localized. Whether you're talking education, whether you're talking economic development, and again, that goes back to the Simplot-Winco contract.
Yeah.
That's a localized.
And that's great.
Releasing the federal funds so that Department of Education doesn't control local funding.
Right.
That gives the community back their tax money. That also gives them back their decision-making ability regarding the education for their community.
Right.
If you want to teach home ec in the school, you can teach home ec for your kids.
I get what you're saying, too, because, again, my mother being a teacher, when the No Child Left Behind came in, and I can recall this as blue as the fucking sky is on a Monday.
I can imagine.
Oh, my goodness.
The number of teachers I heard talk about that and just...
Right. Well,
the numbers who quit.
Here's one of the things that really got my mom to retire was because I remember talking to her on the phone, and I was like, Ma, like, are you going to retire soon? Like, your 25 years is coming up, blah, blah. She's like, oh, this is just terrible. And I was like, what's going on? She says, well, the parents they're not parents anymore. They're customers now.
Right.
I was like, they're what? She says, oh, they're customers. And my mom talks, like, imagine Judge Judy. That's my mom and her,
right.
like, they're voice twins. She's like, well, you gotta imagine that the this and the that and the other. And I'm like, what, the customers? Mom, I'm like, hold back up. And she talks a mile a minute, And I'm like, so they're customers. So here's what was going on. She couldn't discipline students any longer.
Right.
For not having their homework.
Yeah.
If the students were missing too much school, she couldn't fail them.
Right.
Like, you remember going to school.
Yeah.
You got your ass whooped if you didn't go to school. Remember, like, I don't know when you were in high school, but when I was in high school and they started the caller ID thing when we ditched school.
Yeah.
Oh, fuck. That fucked our whole program up. And then we'd have to go out to get the mail 3 days later,
Yeah.
to try to hide the absence. Your mom still found out anyway. They already knew, and you get your ass whooped.
Yeah.
But she couldn't fail the kids for not turning homework in, for poor attendance. The parents were shitty to her. Coming in, trying to tell her with her master's degree, as she would always, I have a master's degree. I'm like, yeah, Ma, I know, I remember. But you know
Developmental
what I mean?
education, yeah.
Yeah, she had a master's degree in education, and that's a lot of school. I mean, you're an educated individual. You know how much school and how much work that shit is. But to have these people coming in, they're telling her how to run her classroom, essentially.
Right.
So I'm on board with that.
These were the people coming in to tell her to run her classroom
Right.
who couldn't pass, who couldn't get into college without taking the remedial courses.
Yeah, back then.
Back then, yeah,
Right.
exactly.
Because like we had to do we had to do the ACTs out west. The SATs are out east. You take that and that's your college entrance.
Exactly.
Yeah. And it's like you do that, you pass the thing, and then you go to college. You go sign up for college, and that's that.
And if you don't pass the thing and you just get a mediocre score, they got you English 95 and Math 95.
Yep.
And boom,
you didn't even start at 101. You started at 95.
95. Yeah, exactly.
That's right.
If you were bad enough, they sent you to 90.
Yeah, exactly. But you know how the
Yeah.
system went. So in the context of that, is the way it used to be. What are you seeing wrong with our education system specifically?
Well, part of it is the universality of it. Like I said, they're teaching the exact same classes in Detroit that they're teaching out in Marsing.
Right.
Okay, it's the exact same education. All of those educations
And the
are tied,
federal funding,
and the
obviously.
federal funding
Okay.
that's tied to those. Okay, you cannot not teach those
Yeah,
and still get the federal funding.
You'll get in trouble. Yeah.
Yeah, you'll lose the funding. And that was actually one of the issues that came up in one of my primary gripes about the Idaho Freedom Foundation in this last session. Reason why is because they're really going hard after, getting rid of Common Core.
Right.
Okay. But you can't get rid of Common Core and keep federal funds.
Right. So you have to do it.
So you have to do it. If you stop doing it,
Right. They pull their money.
they pull their money, and now the money that you save by not teaching Common Core is lost.
Right.
So the question is where's your net gain? Are you gaining resources or losing resources in that transition of creating educational independence
Right.
from the federal funding?
Right.
Okay. Now, my guess is we probably would have lost money.
Right.
That happens to be the think tank and the way that Idaho Freedom Foundation approaches an awful lot of things. Is they're more worried about getting us off of the federal dole than making sure the books balance in the equation. Because we still got to pay our taxes.
Yeah, no matter what.
The federal government's still going to take our taxes.
Yeah. Oh,
Okay?
of course.
And they're going to hold them for our education. They're going to hold them for our roads. They're going to hold them for everything. And if we become independent enough, they're going to start withholding more and more of the funds that they keep out of our taxes.
Right.
It's just the nature of things, and that's one of my primary gripes about the way Idaho Freedom Foundation handles things in the state.
Yeah.
Is they aren't looking to make sure the books get balanced in the process. We should have we should have congressmen, we should have senators that should be looking at getting rid of the taxes at the federal level,
Right.
rather than creating a situation where the federals stop giving us our money back.
Right. So
Just fix it so they're not taking it in the first place.
you're really looking at more self-sustainability than state by state.
Yeah.
Is that a good way to put it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Each state creates its own economy, creates its own diversity,
Creates its own education.
creates its own education. It creates the education based on the economy that makes the state work.
Right.
Okay, Idaho. We have the Frank Church Wilderness Area of No Return. Why not educate Idaho children on ecotourism?
Sure.
We got outfitters that take people back to do big game hunting. We got outfitters that do whitewater rafting on the Salmon River and the Payots and all of the rest. I mean, this is ecotourism.
Yeah.
And Idaho is set up. It's prepared. It's rich for it.
Yes, it
if
is.
we do a better job of managing our lands, where we go in and repeal some of those things that Sierra Club rammed down our throats 40 years ago, We can do scaled down lumber and mining activity in these multi-use areas managed by Bureau of Land Management.
Right.
And we can improve our mining industry. We can improve our timber industry, all at the same time while maintaining a high-quality ecotourism environment. But we got to get all of the stakeholders in the one place, creating a cooperative arrangement where everybody is able to bring something to the table and take something away when they're done.
Right. As opposed to just people coming to the table with nothing and taking away when they're done.
Yeah, exactly. Which is what we got with the federal government.
That's the current
right
model.
now. Yeah, but that's the current model.
Yeah.
And we don't get all of the stakeholders. Literally somebody shows up with a bunch of money and says, I want it done this way. And we have politicians that go, okay, your check was big enough.
Right. And so that's what you're running against, basically.
Yeah, that's what I'm running against.
Yeah.
I'm literally running against people who say, okay, check's big enough. It'll happen.
See, and just personally, I'm all for that, for what you're doing. Because, think about it logically. It's like this dichotomy of Republicans and Democrats. Well, you got, all these how many year politicians, these people that have been in office for X amount of years.
Joe Biden, 47 years.
Yeah, and what has he done?
Yeah,
if he knew what to do, wouldn't he have told Barack Obama? You know what I'm saying?
But yeah, even Jim Risch. I mean, take a look at how long he's been involved in Idaho politics.
He's been there since I've lived here.
Yeah. He was a fixture, when I was graduating 35 years ago.
Okay.
That's how long Jim Risch has been involved in Idaho politics. And the funny thing is he literally moved from Wisconsin, and the year later, he was an Idaho legislator.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, he didn't even live here before he started affecting the Idaho political landscape.
That's insane.
It is.
Joe, what the hell?
Okay. One of the things about Idaho is we're very libertarian.
Yeah.
Okay? You do you,
Yeah.
I'll do me.
Totally.
Okay. Now, the problem is that means I'm used to my independence. I'm not interested in running for office.
Right.
Because I'm successful outside of that office.
Right.
Okay, so I'm not going to run for anything because I don't want to run your life.
Right.
Well, we get people who do want to run your life who are running for those offices, and they're the only ones running for those offices.
Correct.
So you don't have people of a libertarian mindset that are saying, no, government stays out of your bedroom, government stays out of your business,
Right.
Government stays out of your education.
Right.
Literally, you as a community decide what your education, what your economic structure, all of that. That's lowest level politics. The state shouldn't, whether it's the federal government or even the state government, most of those things the government shouldn't be involved in.
I agree with you.
But we got people who moved from Wisconsin.
That's so fucking crazy to me.
You actually take a look this last legislative session. Less than half of our legislators and senators were born and completed college in the state of Idaho.
So they're all, well, I mean, a lot of us are transplants.
Well, yeah. But
Yeah.
the thing is if you come here and the first thing you do upon arriving in the state of Idaho, or
I'm
even
following
within
you,
5 years,
Yeah.
is to become a politician,
Yeah, there's a problem.
there's a problem.
Definitely.
You haven't even had an opportunity to acclimatize to the Idaho way. And literally, we have half of the politicians sitting up in the legislature who don't know what the Idaho way is, claiming that they're doing it the Idaho way.
Clearly they're not, because they wouldn't be claiming it.
Right, exactly.
Like, I've been here for 20 years, Joe. I can tell you right now, the Idaho way is the Idaho way. That's a thing.
Yeah.
Straight up, that's a thing. Idaho's a great place.
Right or wrong, the Idaho way is the
Idaho
exists.
is its own country within a country.
Yeah, and we do things differently.
What'd you find?
So Jim Risch, he was at the University of Wisconsin, Milwaukee from 61 to 63, where he then transferred to the U of I.
Oh, okay.
And then has been in office technically as a prosecuting attorney of Ada County, 1970 to 74, member of the Idaho State Senate.
He went to U of I Law School then.
Idaho State Senate.
Yeah.
From the 21st district, so that started in 1974.
So he's been in the Senate since 74?
He's been in Idaho politics
since 74.
74. Ada County prosecutor.
First.
Prior to.
Yeah.
Prior
When did
to.
he hit Senate?
74.
70
So,
to 74, he was a
70 to
prosecutor?
74.
And then he became senator in 74?
50 years he has held elected office.
In
50
Idaho.
years he has held
In
elected
Idaho.
office in Idaho.
He's got to go. He's got to go. That's
Yeah,
insane.
because he only moved to Idaho. He was in.
Did he go to law
Wisconsin.
school
He went.
at U of I? Because they have a law. That's where the
I
law
think he may
school
have
is.
been a professor at U of I.
He obtained a BS degree in forestry in 1965. Continued his education at the University's College of Law.
Where, in Idaho? Yeah, so because U of I's got a law school.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the lawyers here, and the public defenders and the prosecutors.
In
never go to U of I.
forestry. So he came to U of I to become a lawyer in forestry, but he picked up criminal law. Land rights move over to criminal law, but 50 years
Yeah, that
in elected
what he
positions
did in
in the
college,
state
I
of
don't
Idaho.
give two shits what he did in college, but the 50-year thing.
Rich entered politics in 1970 in Boise at the age of 27. He is now 77.
Yeah, and you're dead on. It's at 50 years.
He's
Jesus
a dinosaur.
Christ. Well, right. Well, see, and that's one of the other things too, Joe, that I really wanted to. Well, I mean, since we're on the subject, it's not really that I wanted to. It's just it comes up is, and you've said it already as far as these laws, if you will, dealing with the ecology of everything. It's dinosaur shit.
Mm-hmm.
Nancy Pelosi's got to go.
Yeah.
Biden's got to go.
Yeah.
Jim Risch has got to fucking go. I'm sorry.
Mass
50
incarceration
years?
has got to go.
Yes, it does. I agree with you.
The war on drugs has got
Gotta
to
go. That's definitely got to go.
Yeah.
That's gee, dude. We could spend 7 hours talking about that.
Yeah, we could.
But
easily.
I agree with all those things. The way we go about them, I think, fundamentally we probably differ a lot. Just some things.
Well, and there's a certain amount of that, and I
Yeah,
understand where
but
that comes from.
the
It's
end
a
goal-
matter of experience.
Yeah,
You
but
know,
the end goal.
how do you? What's the angle that creates the best result?
Yes. Well, see,
Okay.
I'm all for that. When
Yeah.
it comes to these issues, like I told you, outside, this year's really the first year I really got involved politically.
Yeah.
Well, before I didn't really care. It's just like we were talking outside. It's just like our lives are going to go on no matter what.
It will.
But
But that's the nature of who we are.
Yeah.
The nature, and I hate to bring that up, but we're middle-aged white male Americans.
I'm only half.
You pass. Good skin. But we have that appearance. It's going to be acceptable anywhere, anytime, because we are still well within the majority. We are within the accepted cultural norms of the United States.
Sure. What are those anymore, though?
They're changing.
They've
thankfully,
changed.
Thankfully.
During my life, they've changed.
Yeah,
I
we're
can
seeing
tell
more
you,
and more
growing up-
acceptance. We still have some old hardcore, racism out there.
Oh, yeah.
It still shows up, but the next generation are,
Soft. SAWFT, Joe. Soft.
they may be soft, but the thing is they accept that. They went to school with these kids.
Right.
They don't see color the same way. When I went to Meridian High School, back 35 years ago,
Yeah.
we had one black kid that was attending.
Right. And that makes sense, though.
I didn't give it a second. I'm sure he caught a certain amount of flack for it. I
Well,
didn't give him flack.
I'm sure he did.
But the thing is now we have our communities, and part of this is it goes back to the refugees. Okay, reason why is because Boise is one of those refugee communities.
Yeah, it is.
So schools like Bora High School actually have an extreme high density of multicultural students.
Yeah.
Different colors, different religions.
A lot of Africans.
A lot of Africans.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of Myanmar.
Oh, yeah.
West Asians, Central Asians.
Yep.
Out of that area.
Yep.
We have an amazingly diverse, multicultural atmosphere here in Boise for Idaho.
Yeah, well, see,
I mean,
for Idaho, yeah.
Yeah, right.
See,
But
like,
you
I grew
drive
up
around.
in it. Yeah.
You see the halal markets.
Yeah, I know. They're cool.
We have the oldest synagogue west of the Mississippi
The one up there on
in the United
Latah?
States here in Boise. They actually moved it from its original location. But we have the oldest synagogue.
Is that the one on Latah by the cemetery?
Yeah, I think it is.
Yeah. I've
but
been.
that Jewish community is one of the longest lasting west of the Mississippi
That's
in the
crazy.
United States. You know, our Jewish community here in Boise is older than San Francisco.
That's crazy. Boise's really interesting when it comes to things like that, isn't
and
it?
we have, what have we got? We got like 4 mosques.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, we got the one out on 5 Mile in Cloverdale, which is it's from Clinton's era with. I'm drawing a blank on it.
That's
right
all right.
now.
We're looking it
But,
up right now.
Yeah, we got a mosque out there.
Yeah.
That's one of our older ones. It actually replaced a Baptist church.
5 Mile and Victory?
No, 5 Mile and Cloverdale. Or no, Cloverdale and Lake Hazel. Cloverdale, Lake Hazel.
Yeah, I was
right
thinking
there.
that area. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's like what, another 2 miles off,
Right.
southwest.
You know, but that was 1990s because
that was
was part of the refugee during the war that we supported under Clinton.
Where, in Somalia?
No, this was
Or the Bosnian thing?
the Bosnian.
Right, okay, yeah.
Yeah,
Because there's
so-
a lot of Bosnians here,
Yeah,
too.
there's a lot of Bosnians, but that mosque is related to that.
Okay.
Yeah, it's one of those, I keep drawing a blank as to which side it was because one side was the Christians and the other side was the Islam.
Yeah.
Anyway, Idaho ended up with the one that brought their mosque with them.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So that was the whole Bosnia-Herzegovina
Yeah.
thing.
So we've had a mosque here in Idaho since then. You know, and we've had a
Right.
few more that have sprung up since
Right.
then, you know, as far as Islamic cultural centers. Yeah, so, and you drive around, you take a look. We have European delis. We have
Yes, we do.
the Jewish delis.
They're
we
very
have
good.
the halal markets from Afghanistan and Iraq, as well as Southeast Asia. You know, Vietnamese refugees, Myanmar, and
Nigerians. They have a food truck over there by the
Yes.
Bad Boy Burger on Fairview.
Right?
Yeah, it's good. I've eaten there.
They're all. It's amazing.
Yeah.
You know, but
yeah.
it's one of those things. You step out, and unless you know to go looking for these places,
Yeah, you'd never know they were there.
most people in Boise have no idea just how diverse the culture here is.
Well, it's become that way.
Yeah, it's become that
The
way.
20 years I've been here, I've seen it. It's kind of like the joke about, you know, like this being such a white bread place.
Yeah.
You know, like because there's never really, in my 20 years here, there's never really been a large black community. Right?
No.
And the joke when I first moved here was it was the athletes at the school.
Yeah.
You know, that was the majority of the black community here in town because,
Mm-hmm.
you know, they were the basketball and the football players and whatnot.
Right. They were brought in, they were recruited, they got the scholarship,
got
they came
recruited,
here,
they
and then
brought
they
them
turned
here.
around and left.
Yeah, exactly. But
Yeah.
now
Now we got the refugees. And thing
Well-
is even the sports.
Yeah.
A lot of them came and decided to stay.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was going to say because
you
a
know-
lot of these guys decided to stay that were from California.
Right, California.
So we've got a larger black community here. We've also got a larger Hispanic community here.
Okay, well, the Hispanic
know.
community comes here as a result of the migrant workers. You know,
Right.
so 40 years ago when I was going to school, you know, the migrant workers would come up, they would, and like some of them would decide to settle.
Yeah.
You know, they get done with the winter work and they go, you know,
It's nice
Idaho's
here.
a nice place. I'll
Exactly.
stay. You know, and they'd raise their families, and of course their families would go out and work the farms until they reached a point where they became part of the larger community and they were sending their kids to school.
Right.
You know,
What'd you find?
It's called Islamic Community of Bosniaks in Boise.
Yep.
Yep.
Exactly.
yep,
Yeah. It's
the
huge.
Bosniaks.
It's huge. That's a big
And it's down.
Mm-hmm.
It's down off of Lake Hazel and Cloverdale.
Lake Hazel and Cloverdale,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right
Yeah,
there on
you're right. That's exactly. I was thinking when you said
Yeah.
5 Mile and Cloverdale, I was like, "Wow, shit, that's Victory Road area."
Southeast corner.
So yeah, I know
Yeah.
exactly where he's talking about, and
Yeah.
it is too.
But
It's very
it's
large.
huge.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
but that community came in here, you know, back in the 90s as a result.
Yeah.
And it's
They
funny.
came from and a lot of people don't know this, like, because when I worked at Micron, I worked with a lot of Bosnians,
Yeah.
and they're some tough sons of bitches.
Well, they are.
For one, well, they
okay.
lived through a civil war.
They did.
like, dude,
But that's one of the things.
you know?
You know, I've attended a couple book clubs, and some of the book clubs around here have teachers in it. You know,
Yeah.
and they'll tell their stories about, you know, the refugee kids that are in their classrooms. You know, and you'll hear a story, you know, about one of the teachers talking about one of their kids from Somalia.
Right.
And the kid's just easygoing, nice, level head, But the second somebody starts picking on him,
yeah, you better watch out. Well, and
it's done.
Think about it. Like,
But
things these kids
it's the fight or flight.
Yeah.
And, they've run out of places to fly to.
Yes, they have.
So
they're going to fight.
They're going to fight.
Yep.
But that's one of those things. It's one of the culture things. We have a significant number of war refugees here in Boise.
Yes, we do.
Whether they're from Afghanistan, Iraq, here on emergency because they cooperated with U.S. forces in Afghanistan or Iraq,
right? Or
whether they're here after, spending 6 years in a refugee camp before coming here from Myanmar or Somalia or any of those other these are war refugees.
Yeah.
Or some other sort of extreme trauma that they've fled from.
Right.
And and this is home.
Yeah.
This is home.
And it's really cool too, because like I said, like when I first moved here, it was like all my friends in college, like, you're moving to where? Iowa? No, Idaho, dude, Boise, Idaho.
Yeah.
And it's, like I said, it's changed. In 20 years I've been here, the landscape. And it's, to me, like, I grew up in that, so it's no big deal. You know what I mean? Like, we had everybody, like, it didn't matter. We had, Puerto Ricans and Cubans and blacks and Haitians and Irish and British and whatever, you name it, and it was there. But here it's really cool. I think it's cool, personally. You know what I mean?
Well, it is. And a lot of it is the way we've decided to approach the refugee problem here in the state of Idaho.
Yeah.
Okay, now,
they're hardworking people, too.
They are. They show up. They do their job.
Yes, they do.
They work, which is the reason why so many of them are entrepreneurs. They got their salons, they're running their delis, they're running the shopping market. Some of them have managed to upscale.
They get restaurants.
You got restaurants, some really awesome restaurants.
Yeah, they do.
The best food. Right? But
we eat there a lot, so I know exactly. We eat at some of these places.
have a lot of multicultural experience in the restaurant industry here in Boise area.
Yeah.
And literally, you could eat in a different place. You could eat from a different country every day of the month.
It's like Manhattan almost.
Yeah. It's
there's a street up in Midtown, kind of around. It's close to St. Patty's Cathedral. If you've ever been to Manhattan, last time I was there was with my uncle, but it's literally like it's on a bit of a slope, and I forget what fucking street it is. But literally, it's like you go, and it's like German food, Italian food, Moroccan food, Puerto Rican food, Cuban food, Nigerian food, Mexican food, Canadian food, like Japanese food, and it's just restaurants in a row. Right. I don't know if it's all still open like that because this was 20 years ago, but like it reminds me of that.
Yeah.
But except it's not all in one strip.
But see, like one of the things that we have a problem with, especially with the refugees in America. This relates to Ilhan Omar's district in Illinois.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is she in Illinois or Minneapolis? She's Minnesota.
Minnesota.
Yeah.
Her district is actually just outside of the main area, and what they've done is they brought in an awful lot of the refugees and basically created a slum or ghetto.
They brought Somalians there, right?
Yeah.
She's Somalian as well.
But what they did is they brought all of the Somalians and just
dumped them there.
Dumped them there.
Yeah, literally.
Their own community, just boom. It's like, nah, you guys, we don't want you with the rest of us, so we're going to stick you in this housing center and basically created a ghetto for the Somalians in Minnesota. Which is why Ilhan Omar was able to get elected so easily, because there was no diversity in her district.
I get it. It was just people for her.
Right. So it was literally Somalis voting for a Somalian. Okay, not that that's bad.
No, I get it.
But that's the way they did it.
Yeah.
Now the problem is when they did that, all of the crime lords that managed to come in with that refugee are now part of that community.
Yeah.
Which means that the U.S. government
I know exactly what you're talking
can't control it because there is the established.
I think.
There's the established organized crime that's integrated and taking control of it. I think that
was planned, personally. But.
Well, but see, the comparison is the way it happens here in Idaho.
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
In Idaho, they bring in a refugee and they integrate him into an established community. They live everywhere.
Yeah.
My brother, when he was living out of Meridian, lived in a low-income housing complex. families from about 5 different countries.
Right.
But this was integrated into the community.
Right.
It wasn't all.
Yeah, they're not all just,
they're
just concentrated in one spot.
They're not all so.
Yeah.
And the Refugee Commission here in the state of Idaho, International Rescue, I can't remember, IRC.
Yeah.
They actually help with the placement so that they're spread out. And this helps them build a community with the people who are already here because they're able to talk and communicate. One of the interesting things about the way my brother was living at the time was there were 2 young girls in the community. Okay. Because these girls were responsible for translating for their parents. These 2 girls had picked up about 7 different languages that they were speaking in the community. So literally they could translate for everybody.
That's cool.
Any combination. The kids would get together, they'd play, they'd learn the new languages. Now the kids could translate, what was being said from, one person from Nigeria to the next person who grew up in Somalia. So literally these girls had learned like 5 or 6 different languages and were handling the translation for, all the parents in the community.
That's really cool.
And, they hit school, knowing 7 languages.
Right.
Could you imagine?
Well, right. Well, it's like, in like Europe, like and other places around the world, like they're required to learn.
Well, at least
English.
2 or 3.
Yeah.
Well, they're required to learn English, because of the relationship to the European Union.
And then
British
then
English.
they have to learn. So it's like if you're German, by the time you graduate from high school, you know German, you probably know French or Italian or Spanish, and you know English.
Yeah.
Minimum.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Well, it's, the old joke, 3 languages trilingual, 2 languages is bilingual, 1 language is American.
Yeah.
But...
Right. Well, that's a byproduct of our education system. Because, like, how it goes in high school. Like, when we were going to school, and you were a little before us, but it was like an elective class. Like, I'm lucky just that I grew up with it. Spanish. So
you grew up with you grew up learning Puerto Rican in your house.
Spanish. It's Spanish. My grandmother and everybody. But
it's the dialect.
I grew up also, my grandfather, my dad's father, so we're Dutch, German.
Right.
So, like, I learned Yiddish a little bit.
A little bit.
Yeah, and I learned German a little bit, from my grandfather.
Yeah.
Because he spoke them both.
Yeah.
As well as English.
I think it was my great-grandparents were the last ones that actually spoke, foreign language fluently.
Yeah. But you see what I'm saying? So it's like, like I was fortunate, like just me personally, I was fortunate in that. Growing up with it. Like, because when your mother's pissed at you, or your grandma's pissed at you, or your aunt, I got to she was pissed at me, and she'd curse at me in Spanish too. Like.
Absolutely. Yeah, but that's the difference in the way we handled the situation between the way Minnesota did it and the way we do it here in Idaho. We do a lot better job of integrating.
A much better job.
Yes, it's actually one of the most successful refugee resettlement programs in the United States right now.
What do you think about
because
Hartford?
of the way we handled it? Hartford,
Connecticut. They've had a real bad problem over there.
Well,
from what I've understood. I should say that because just what I've heard, because they have a refugee city there, Hartford, Connecticut.
But see, that's one of the things. They have a refugee city.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
that's one of those where they created the ghetto, and creation of the ghetto creates its own
No,
problems.
not like that. Like they're a haven.
Okay.
Like we are. You know what I mean? Like, but they've had a problem there. Like Hartford. So I lived in Meriden, Connecticut for a bit.
Okay.
Which is about an hour south.
Right.
Right. And you want to talk diverse. Like that's like there's a lot of Puerto Ricans there. Let's just put it that way. Because Connecticut's very blue blood, very ho fancy.
Yes.
A lot of rich white folks with old money. Let's put it that way. So in Hartford, from what I've understood, and this has been a minute since I've read or seen or heard anything about this, they were having a real problem with the refugee issue there. As far as like crime was going up, like just problems associated with, said issue.
Yeah, without actually being able to understand what was going on with their problems there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I didn't know if you were aware of that or not.
No.
Yeah.
No.
It's basically kind of like Minnesota. And this is just my understanding of it. Like I said, it's been a minute. It wasn't so much that they just all got, like they took a group of people from a specific area and just dumped them in Hartford
Right.
and Thurman area, but they've had such an influx of refugees, from what I understand, that it's just caused a lot of, like, again, crime's gone up, and just
So this actually goes back to a lot of history with regards to racism, especially in Yankeedom.
yeah.
Connecticut, all of those other places.
Very
World
blue
War
blood.
II was a big issue. Okay, reason why is because during World War II, we needed to start doing the ships and the building and the structures, and we had an awful lot of industrial workers that moved into the area.
Right.
Okay, well, you start looking at that situation, and when they were importing the workers, they created two types of housing. Okay, they created one type of housing that was specific for the white workers that they wanted to retain in Connecticut and in the Northeast.
That makes sense.
And there was a different kind of housing for the black workers
For
that they
the
wanted
not
to
white workers.
leave,
Right.
after they were done, So it's like you had these two different qualities of housing.
Right.
And that's just the way, they
Yeah.
did it,
Yeah.
back World War II.
Well, and it
because
makes
you
sense
had
in
all
Connecticut.
these people, well...
It's old money there.
Well,
It's that old
it
money.
actually goes clear back to the abolitionist movement in the Civil War.
Right.
Okay, there were an awful lot of abolitionists that were saying, hey, we need to get rid of slavery. We need to get rid of slavery. Okay,
But we
the
don't want 'em here.
We don't want them in our backyard.
Right.
It was the NIMBY racism. We don't want slavery in America, but we don't want them here.
Right.
Well, the thing is after they were done and nobody wanted them down south, a lot of them were moving to these other places because they now had freedom of movement and they were trying to move to where the work was.
Right.
Except where the work was, the people didn't actually want them in their community. So you ended up with, segregated communities in the north,
Right.
like Detroit.
Right.
Like
That's
Flint.
a good example. Yeah.
These were areas where they went to find work, and they found work.
But you
they
can't live
weren't-
here.
You can't live in the white community. You can't live in the established white communities.
That's crazy.
Okay, so that was the problem with the abolition movement post-World War II, where you were dealing with Reconstructionism in the South and, everything that moved down that started creating the Jim Crow laws. You were still dealing with a
Right.
significant amount of segregation because of the NIMBY racism that was happening in the Union areas.
Right.
And so that was one of the problems that you were dealing with then. Thing is that didn't stop. With the end of the Civil War. It continued through World War I, it continued through
Right.
World War II, the creation of these policies where, depending on the color of skin, you got a particular kind of housing.
Right.
Because they didn't want you to stick
And who
around after the work
created
was
all
done.
of that?
Who knows?
I don't. Well, the
Yeah.
Democrats sure get a lot of blame for everything.
Well, the Democrats get a whole lot of blame for it, and the thing is there probably was a certain amount of Democrats that were associated with it.
I
You go
mean-
back to, the 1994 crime bill with Joe Biden.
Yeah. Thank you.
Joe Biden, he created the 1994 crime bill,
Yeah,
which
he did.
disproportionately affects over-policed communities
Of minority.
of minority individuals.
Yes.
Like the ghettos in New York, of
Yes.
which you can blame de Blasio and Bloomberg and all the rest of them for their stop and frisk stuff.
Well, right.
These were, and
Well, they had the Rockefeller laws too back in the day.
yeah,
For the drugs.
Yeah.
Which were they were handing out dime pieces like they were Halloween candy.
uh-huh,
For drugs.
yeah,
10 years in federal, or not in federal, but 10 years in Attica and shit.
yeah,
For drugs.
yeah.
And again.
And how easy is it to plant drugs on a poor kid?
Exactly.
Exactly. And have that poor kid get decent representation in
Exactly.
the adversarial system.
Exactly. Well, it's like Biggie said, man. You either got a wicked jump shot or you slanging the crack rock.
Right.
Notorious B.I.G. That was one of his lines from one of his songs back in the
East
day.
Coast versus West Coast.
And he's
yeah.
not wrong. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Because you got to think about it too. Like in these bigger cities, though, like with the drugs and stuff.
Yeah.
These kids be making money.
Yeah.
They got
until
new
they got caught.
Right. They got the Jordans on.
Yeah.
Back in the 90s with the big cell phones. That's. I mean, it was part of life.
Well, it's in the 90s.
Yeah.
If you had a pager, you were one of two things: a sex worker or a drug dealer.
Right.
Yeah.
Or you were just fucking cool.
Or you
I
were
had a
just
pager
cool.
for a week one time, and I was just fucking cool.
Right. But the thing is,
It was actually my buddies from his work.
Yeah.
So it was going off all the time, so I looked cool, but it was really his work paging him. He's like, yeah, you can borrow it, dude.
but it's like you talk to the white kids from the same era.
Yeah.
They were smoking as much dope.
Of course.
Snorting as much cocaine.
Everybody was doing
Everybody
shit.
was doing it. But who was going to prison?
Right. Exactly.
You know?
You're right. You're not wrong. Well, see, here's the thing, though, too, is like, and you just brought it up, is you brought up old Sleepy Joe. Like,
Yeah.
I don't give a shit about what side you're on. That dude's a fucking hack, for one.
Well, he's been a hack for 47 years.
Yes, he's just a hack. Like
Yeah.
I said, if you knew how to fix anything, why didn't you tell the guy that was right above you for 8 years?
Well, the thing is he took, 4 years getting the crime bill passed?
Right, in the 90s.
In the 90s.
Right.
You know, and on top of that, he likes to claim authorship of the Patriot Act. You know, his 1992 counterterrorism bill.
What, after the first World Trade Center bomb?
Yeah, something like that. But he created the 1992 counterterrorism bill,
Okay.
which was basically a precursor to the Patriot Act.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, so it's like he's been trying to get these unconstitutional searches and laws, you know, through
50
Congress.
years.
1992, 50 years.
Well, for 28
30.
there, but yeah.
Yeah,
but
the
he's
thing-
been in office.
He's
for
been
it.
in office
Yeah.
for that long.
Yeah. Oh,
you
dude,
know?
he's a hack.
And he's been working on trying to pass these laws that are constitutional violations, and he's been getting away with it because after the Civil War, our legislators allowed the Jim Crow laws to occur.
Yeah.
Okay, these were human rights violations. Okay, they were violations of the Constitution because all men were created equal, and you should not be making
Correct.
a law based on race, religion,
Right.
You know,
Correct.
you shouldn't.
No, not at all.
Yet, post-Civil War, the entire South had all of these Jim Crow laws, which basically made it a felony to be living while black.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, which of course stuck them in penal institutions and then rented out as slave labor by the state.
Right.
But
Well, you know that was designed.
yeah, it was designed. You know.
You know what I mean? Like that's just an obvious design.
Yeah.
It's a flawed design,
Oh, it's a huge flaw.
obviously, but it was designed, and they did it as an underhanded way. Think about
Well,
it.
they did it to repackage it, and they made it
Exactly.
acceptable to the abolitionists because it was, you know, for crimes committed against society.
Exactly. So it's okay then.
Yeah, it's
Well,
okay.
and you know, the South, like, you know, well, it's like one thing, like, I've gotten in a few debates with people on Facebook, if you want to call them debates.
debates, yeah.
Well, you know, it's like, so this 22-year-old kid says to me one time, he says, well, black people can't be racist. And I said, have you ever been to the South? He goes, well, yeah, my family's from there. I said, but have you ever been? He's like, well, no. And I was like, go to Mississippi and just hang out with a bunch of old black people
Oh, yeah.
and tell me they're not racist. I understand why they are.
Well, yeah.
You just nailed it. You just touched on it. Like, I would be too.
I would be extremely upset if I had to deal with that degree
That
of
shit for,
you know.
for that many years.
Well, but you get into institutional trauma. You get into historical racial trauma.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, this is the stuff your mother and dad learned from their parents, who learned it from their parents, who learned it
Yep.
from their parents.
Yep, you're
okay,
right.
literally, you have 4, 5, 6 generations of it being beat into people that you behave a specific way,
Yep.
or you get dead.
Yeah.
You know, that's intergenerational trauma.
You're right.
You know, and it gets taught. So literally,
You're right.
you know,
You're right. See, trauma seems to be a very common thing today, kind of, with what we've been talking.
well, it's an awareness of what's going on, you know, in
Yeah.
life today. You know, you start paying attention to what happens, where the trauma comes from.
Yeah.
But trauma creates a lens for everything we see in life, everything we do.
You're right.
You know, we look
It's
at
like
it
that
and go,
dog that bit me, now I hate
right,
dogs.
right. Dog bit you, you hate dogs.
Yeah.
You know,
Even though I love dogs, but, you know.
well, yeah. You know,
For example.
there was that one girl who divorced you after giving you an STD. And
Oh.
you going like, you know.
Yeah,
but
I get what you're
you know,
saying.
but the thing is, your dad had trauma.
Right. And pass
Okay.
it to you.
I have a grandfather who was a World War II veteran.
Me too.
He came back with TBI.
Wow.
He beat my dad.
Wow. Because of the brain injury?
Right, because of the brain injury. You know, there were moments of indeterminate rage. He would act out and then forget he had done it.
Uh-huh.
You know, but the thing is, you start looking at that intergenerational trauma as trauma is transferred from one generation to a next.
You're right.
You learn behaviors created
By someone else.
by someone 5 generations ago.
Yeah.
And then you want to say, well, I'm just the way I am. Well,
Right.
There's reasons you're the way you are, and they weren't good reasons in the first place.
You're right.
Yeah, so it's one of those things where it's almost a duty in our generation to understand that generational trauma so we don't pass it on to our kids.
You're right.
And that goes back to one of the situations where right now, 19 years of war in Afghanistan.
Yeah, it's insane.
Okay. I was in Afghanistan in 2002. Okay.
18 years ago.
18 years ago. Okay. Right now, I have a 21-year-old. Is he 21? Yeah. 21-year-old son who just completed his 4 years of service in the United States Air Force. He just got back from Korea. Okay. I have a daughter who she just turned 20. Okay, this is her third, 2.5 years with the United States Army.
Okay.
And literally, I have kids who could have been tasked with walking the exact same ground I walked 20 years ago.
Yeah, when you were
or
there.
18 years ago in Afghanistan. I mean, so we're looking at generational issues
what is
here.
That like? Wow, that's something to wrap your head around.
Wrapping your head around the fact that
it'd be like if you had fought in Vietnam, and then 20 years later your kid's in Vietnam,
right?
Like, you know what I mean? But it's Afghanistan.
Yeah, it's Afghanistan.
But, you know what I mean?
20 years later, you're watching your kid get shot at
the same place you did
by the children of the people who shot at you.
Right? In the same place.
In the same place.
That's insane.
That's where we're at, though. Now.
Wow.
We have literally passed, not just what I teach my kids because of my trauma associated with that tour of duty.
Yeah.
But now they're reliving it exactly.
Right. I get it. Yeah. That's
so
insane.
we're training this warrior mentality, this, constant conflict, reinforcing trauma through generations.
Constant conflict.
By the way we do, World War II, Korea, Vietnam, Bosnia-Herzegovina, Nicaragua, what we're doing down there, Afghanistan.
And who's getting
Iraq.
rich?
Who's getting rich?
Yeah.
It ain't us. It ain't us out bleeding on the battlefield.
No, God, no. That's terrible what they do to you guys.
Yeah.
Seriously, like, it's just, and some of the things, like, there's been some VA reforms.
Yeah.
And, Trump's been big on that. That's one of the things that I've liked about him, that really got me on board was he's addressed some of these issues.
Well, he has.
He's at least, and he's just, he can only do so much. We know that. He's got limited powers.
Yeah.
But at least the dude's willing to be like, hey, we need to go to bat for this. We need to do something here. I'm going to executive order this. Like, he's done stuff for the VA hospitals and the veterans.
He has.
Yeah.
Some
Not to get all pro-Trump, but I mean.
Yeah, but I understand where you're coming from because there's an awful lot of people who see that, who go, okay, well, Trump's done this.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is we got Dirk Kempthorne who's running the local VA. He's running the regional VA here in Boise.
Yeah.
It's a good one.
Over
We've got
on Fort Street?
Yeah, over on Fort Street.
Yeah.
We got a couple other programs here that are very big that help veterans here in the local area. Wyatt Warriors out at Boise State University is a post-9/11 GI Bill program that helps bring people in, get them through college on the 9/11 GI Bill, and then get them jobs and integrate. So we have a real strong veteran
community here in Boise.
Safety network.
Isn't Boise such a cool place to live?
It really is.
That's
the amount of things.
Another facet of the city.
Yes, I mean Boise is truly this multicultural, always welcoming environment. Regardless of your history, regardless of your background, you can come here, and there will be somebody who wants to help you succeed.
Yes. That's really well put.
And that's Boise. That's just the community. Yeah, we got a couple sour apples around here. But as a general rule, Boise wants to help you succeed. They want to see you succeed. They want to see you create a bigger, better community, which is why you see the refugees succeeding. That's why you see all of these amazing things happening.
The veterans,
the multicultural, the inmate programs that we got.
Yep.
We got programs that assist with mental health,
There's
trauma
a lot
healing.
Of that,
one of my favorites, of course, Idaho Veterans Network. They do an awful lot of work. They started out as a veterans court program. You know, so people could sit down and do sort of a group therapy round table like AA.
okay.
You know, but
for veterans.
For veterans,
Right.
You know, so they could literally come sit down, you know, and talk about their experiences with people who could relate because of different, you know.
Well, because being in a war, man.
Yeah.
I mean, what kind of trauma does that inflict on a person?
Well, it depends, you
Good
know,
night.
because you got so many different ways of dealing with it and so many different ways of approaching it.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like, I actually joined the service late, so one of the things I had going for me was a certain amount of resiliency. You know, so it's how resilient are you in dealing with trauma? Are you able to cope with it? Do you have
the coping mechanisms? Yeah, that's a big deal.
And it's interesting because I actually categorize that into two different things. You got coping skills,
right,
and you got coping mechanisms.
Okay.
Okay, your coping mechanisms, that's your alcohol and drugs.
Right.
Right? Because that's what you're using to escape.
Right.
Okay, your coping skills are the things that actually teach you to deal with stress.
Right.
In a positive way.
Positive, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so
that's how I got into weight training.
Right. Did you learn positive coping skills, or did you learn the negative coping mechanisms?
Mechanisms, right, okay.
You know, which way did you deal with your trauma? Which way did you deal with your stress?
Right.
You know, so you start looking at that. And a lot of those programs were helped to rebuild resiliency in people who had lost it, who had started resorting to the coping mechanisms.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
and
good.
it was to
That's
bring them
great.
back, you know, back into culture, back into society in a way that was constructive, so that they could actually cope with the people around them and be able to relate again to you know, their civilian counterparts and communicate.
That's because that's important.
Oh, it is.
Like
it's
in
extremely
any
important.
relationship, and this is my opinion. In any relationship, communication's number one.
Absolutely.
In any relationship, doesn't matter what. It doesn't matter if it's your freaking butcher or your barber. You know what I mean? Communicate. Well, because you know, if you don't communicate with what kind of meat you want, you ain't gonna know. If you don't communicate how you want your haircut, but you get what I'm saying.
I want a T-bone, man. Come on.
Right.
What am I doing with filet mignon? I'm a T-bone man. You know.
Right. But communication is huge.
It is
huge.
And the thing is a lot of the combat trauma, a lot of things that you see and hear and experience in those environments, you know, they're the same things the war refugees deal with, you know, just in a different context.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, because...
Well, it's different experiences in the midst of the same conflict.
Right.
Right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Because,
Yeah.
I mean, there's a soldier's perspective versus, like, the citizens of the place where the conflict is occurring.
Right.
Because I can probably guarantee you that a lot of the people that have fled were terrified. Probably.
Let's go ahead and talk about an issue with the Boise Chamber of Commerce.
Sure.
Okay, the Boise Chamber of Commerce has been trying to get the F-35 stationed out here at Gowan Field.
The ones at Gowan, yeah.
Is a National Guard Reserve capability, or Air National Guard Reserve capability. And the Chamber of Commerce thinks that, one, that's going to bring more money in here because we're going to be doing the upgrades and miscellaneous other things.
Some more federal money.
Some more federal money for the facilities. Okay, now, truth is that's a lie. Reason why is because we don't have the skill set here for the money to actually stay here. They're going to bring in all the labor. The labor they bring in is going to do it, and then the labor is going to take all their money back home with them.
They'll outsource it. They'll get
They'll
paid.
outsource it. They'll get paid and go home.
What about Mountain Home?
Well, Mountain Home isn't related to what's going on with Gowan Field as the National Guard facility.
Got it. Okay.
Okay, so we're doing all of these upgrades, and we're going to have to outsource the federal monies. You know, it'll get spent here for like about 6 months while they're doing the upgrades, but then it's gone.
As soon as that's done, the money's gone.
It's done. Meanwhile, about 200 houses that are within the noise zone that'll have to be demolished because you can't live in them with the noise that will be affecting the area with the expansion.
So really, it'll hurt.
It'll hurt. Now, the interesting thing is when you start taking a look at the social aspect of what's going on. Reason why is because the F-35 has been used in most of the countries where our refugees have come from.
Really?
So when you start getting these low-flying, loud jets taking off, flying over the homes of people who just escaped these countries.
Came from that, yeah.
Yes, and now you got jets flying. And Jimmy Halliburton actually addressed this while he was talking at one of the impact zones. He was taking, he likes to do the bicycle project. So every year he goes out and he gifts to underprivileged kids bikes.
Yeah.
You know, and
is that through Boise Bicycle Project?
Yeah, it's through Boise Bicycle Project. He's been running that nonprofit for like 10, 15 years now. You know,
he has been doing that how long, hasn't he?
But one of the
Holy
things he
shit,
does
okay.
is the volunteers that go in and repair and fix all of the bicycles, a lot of those bicycles turn around and they get donated to underprivileged kids.
Nice.
And he remembers going out to one of these events where he was presenting, some bikes to a family.
Uh-huh.
The family happened to be refugees.
Oh, okay.
And it just happened to be one of those times when the F-16s were doing a low flyover
Oh, no.
and the family panicked.
Right, I get it.
And then he's trying to figure out what's going on. And then after the jets are gone, Dad comes out and explains exactly what the situation was, and why they have an instinctive reaction every time they hear the jets.
Well, they're terrified, yeah.
It's an instinctive reaction because the thing you want to do is you want to get shelter. You want to get under something
yes.
so that you don't get hit by the overblast, you don't get hit by debris or,
Shot or
whatever. But the thing is the F-35s are the ones that have been flying those night missions in Afghanistan and Iraq.
Wow.
So here you are, night mission.
Yeah, totally.
Running.
So here you are,
loud and low.
3,000 miles away from home, in your new home.
And you get
have to
that
relive
same
that.
sound doing
good God.
and it's like,
That's scary.
come on, guys. This is a refugee. Why would you want, I understand you think money's coming in. We know better.
Right.
Because that money's only temporary.
So then it's just a political angle for them to look good.
Yeah.
That's what I'm hearing.
Well,
when you're
but
explaining
the other
this.
thing is you're looking at two different views of it. One is you have a refugee population here that has one view of that.
Right.
Okay, the other thing you have here is a strong veteran population.
Right.
That's freedom noise, man.
Right.
So you got two completely different perspectives
Yeah.
living within the same community, two totally different reactions to the exact same stimulus.
Stimulus, yes. That is so crazy.
And you go, but even within the context of a veteran, that's a combat sound.
Correct, right.
That's a sound from when you were over there.
Right.
Regardless of what sound it is in the context.
It's combat, no matter what.
Yeah.
So both sides, it's still combat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whether you count on it as a sense of security, but the thing is it still sparks the same
Trauma.
Yeah. It may sound good initially, but the thing is it's taking you back to the place you left.
Wow, that's such a mind fuck. It really is.
Right?
To think about it, obviously I don't think about that.
Well, no, because you've never experienced, you've never needed to think about it.
I've never, exactly. But to hear someone say that out loud and to hear it, it's just like, holy shit.
Well,
and it's just crazy. You know what I mean? But to think, it's like I said, Boise's cool. Because we have
we have it all.
Yeah, we have
the diversity.
Everything. It's great.
You want to go out and see the air show out there? It's great.
Yeah, it is.
They have a good air show out there.
Yeah, they really do.
And as long as it's announced, everything's cool. But if you got an F-35 based out of here that takes off 8 o'clock every morning,
yeah, that's going to cause problems.
It's not like once every 6 months when they bring out the military air show and you get a couple of Russian jets out there flying aerodynamics with a couple of U.S.
It just sounds to me like the
different.
Chamber of Commerce here is somebody had a cockamamie idea.
Well, it made sense on the small scale of things.
Right, but
because it represented something. And I will admit, here's the thing. The F-16 mission is not a real big mission right now.
Okay.
So our National Guard airmen out there that are flying the F-16 jets don't get a lot of deployment time.
Right.
The F-35s fly a lot.
All the time, yeah.
Okay, so basically what that is the commander of the F-16 squadron out there wants to replace the F-16s with F-35s
they want to get some
so
action.
that they can get action and send their people overseas for, their little 3-month rotation, to fly low and slow over foreign nationals.
Okay.
Okay, so that increases their clout as combat commanders by being able to get their...
More bureaucracy.
It's more bureaucracy, but it's bullets on, awards and recommendations.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah.
Because they're actually picked up to go and do the mission.
Right.
So it's not like they've sold it to the Chamber of Commerce as a money thing. Thing is it's the commander out there saying, we need combat time in order for me to get that little extra pin that's going to make me competitive for the next promotion.
Exactly. Right. I get it. It's just it's self-serving.
It is.
It's
It
so
is.
self-serving.
And it's a little short-sighted. But it's like one of the other things. I got a friend, Dan McKnight. Dan McKnight runs BringOurTroopsHome.us.
Okay.
And this is a nonprofit. He's expanded it nationally, and his primary mission, of course, is to end the war in Afghanistan and end the war in Iraq. Okay. And he's been working all across the nation. But I remember him telling me a story about when he went to Washington, D.C., because one of the things he was trying to promote was defend the guard. Now, the idea behind defend the guard was every state created individual legislation that would not allow the governor to release National Guard troops in support of federal operations short of a formal declaration of war by the U.S. Congress.
Wow.
Okay. So, President Trump calls up Brad Little and says, "Hey, Brad, I need troops in Afghanistan."
Yeah.
Brad goes, "Cool, they're on their way." Okay, if we pass that legislation, President Trump calls up Brad Little, and Brad goes, "Yeah, can't do it till you declare war, sir.
Right.
Not happening." Okay, well, the thing is while Dan was in Washington, D.C. trying to promote this bill and talk with a number of individuals, he was actually approached by a National Guard commander, a general level, who's essentially a lobbyist back in Washington, D.C.
I know where
That's
this is
his
going.
job. And this general lobbyist was going around to everybody Dan talked to and said, "If you pass this, we're going to lose federal funding."
It always comes back to that federal funding.
Federal funding. It always comes back to the federal funding. But that's what it was. You turn around and look at the general and you say, "Sir, you got kids, right? You got kids in the service? You ready to send your kids back over to Afghanistan and Iraq to get shot at by enemies?"
Right.
You know that's exactly what it is you're doing at this point, right? That's what you're lobbying for by making sure that this legislation we want passed fails.
Right.
And, it's like, yeah, I understand that. And you make perfect sense. Wow. By the way, I'm still going to lobby to make sure this bill fails.
Right.
Because it's about the money.
It's all about the money. They don't give a shit about people.
Well, even to the degree that they don't give a shit about their own kids.
Right.
Well,
they don't already.
They're willing to put the kids on the chopping block for, federal dollars.
Well, if it'll keep them in office and it'll keep them getting paychecks, these big-ass paychecks. Hey, I got a question for you. Since you brought up the word lobbyist, I just got a question for you.
Okay.
And it's not really related to lobbyists, but it just popped into my head. What do you think about these scumbag senators and congresspeople who, they make what, $174K a year? Is that
128 to 174,
something
depending?
like that?
Yeah,
Okay,
somewhere
depending
in
on
that
how long
zone.
they've been there.
They're six figures. It's six figures.
What do you think about some of these people, these men and women that are, multi-millionaires?
Like Jim Risch.
Or Nancy Pelosi.
Or Nancy Pelosi,
Joe Biden.
yeah.
Hunter just got busted, right? Did you hear about that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, where's he been?
Right. He's been maintaining
Russia?
favors for daddy in Russia.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Didn't he get busted for human trafficking?
Yeah, that's what they're tying it
Yeah.
to. He got $3.5 million off of, I think it was...
Selling kids.
Yeah, well, women.
Women, well...
Yeah. They weren't kids. It was human trafficking, not child trafficking. But it's a
that's
vocab
over
difference.
there, and it's a very subtle difference.
Yeah, exactly.
And
That's
whether,
just how they report it. I'm just saying.
Yeah,
how
that's how
here.
they report it. But the thing is, ultimately, most of these were probably minors.
Probably minors.
By
Yeah. You're
US
probably
standards.
right. You're probably right.
Yeah,
I'm
but,
not arguing that part of it. I'm just saying. He
got busted for human trafficking.
Yeah.
And he's being tied to it, and a lot of it's because of his associations that he got via daddy.
Yeah. Well, I mean, dude, we watched a thing where he went to China 5 times. Yeah. And Hunter Biden did 5 times in one thing, but that's a whole nother ballgame. But so, what do you think about these politicians though that are they're multi-millionaires? There's no way in hell they made that. And about the insider trading that they were doing and all.
Yeah.
The stuff Martha Stewart went to prison for. Right. But it was cool if Pelosi did it. Or what was the one lady, Feinstein?
Oh, yeah.
Her husband's one of the general contractor guys in the whole military industrial complex thing.
Oh, yeah.
She's a multi-millionaire.
Well, I mean, that sort of shenanigans goes clear back to Johnson.
Lyndon Johnson?
Vietnam,
yeah.
Vietnam.
After Kennedy, yeah.
Lyndon Johnson and Kennedy's Vietnam. Reason why, and the DuPonts. The DuPonts were big in that
DuPonts,
too.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Kennedys. All that money was tied in.
Even further.
Well, yeah. I mean, you can take it clear back to Andrew Jackson, the Fed, and the
we can
funding
take it back to the French Revolution.
True, we can. We can take it back to the French Revolution. Because the French Revolution was funded on both sides by the Rothschilds.
Who've been doing it ever since.
Yeah, and it just continues to propagate that way. But
wow, you just gained like 8 million cool points in my cool book because you knew that.
Yeah, but the thing is, that problem continues to be, and it's because we've never addressed the situation legally within the United States, within our government, because once you reach there, it's basically been blessed off on, is saying, yeah, okay, we know, but, as long as you don't abuse it.
Right. Which is not abuse in the first place of power.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly. But as long as you don't abuse it to excess to where you create a situation that destabilizes the nation, we'll let it slide.
Right.
Because like LBJ, Lady Bird Johnson was the one who actually owned the shares in the military-industrial complex that was getting rich off of continuing the war in Vietnam.
Yeah.
So it was the family was still continuing to profit off of it, even though Lyndon, wasn't directly involved.
Right.
So his estate got richer, even though it wasn't directly tied to him. But it continues to be the same problem. Feinstein is one of those. Pelosi, one of those.
Jesus.
A number of these individuals that continue. Schumer, they continue. And as long as it's continued to be blessed off on, and acceptable at a number of those levels, it continues to happen. So that's one of the interesting situations, particularly as we start digging deeper and deeper into what's going on with the Clintons the Epstein issue and who knew what, when, and why.
Well, the whole Russian collusion.
It
was them.
It was, you step back. One reason why is because we were talking about the Uranium One deal.
Yep.
And selling uranium from BLM land.
Hillary sold the uranium to the Russians, who then in turn sold it to the Iranians. I think it was something like 25% of our stock she sold off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was illegal, yet somehow it still managed to happen under Hillary as Secretary of State.
Yes, sir.
It's one of those things. Where exactly are we with justice in regards to our politics? When are we going to hold our politicians responsible for the things they do?
Right.
And as long as the duopoly maintains control, you'll never be able to make that happen.
I agree with you on that.
See,
that's what I'm saying. When people mistake me for being a right-wing conservative, because I'm not. Because they're just as fucking guilty as
exactly
the ones over here.
The difference is the Republicans dress it up in nationalism and patriotism, and the Democrats dress it up in feel-good, social safety nets.
Right.
They're still both selling out everybody to the exact same people.
Right. And
so until you step back,
politicians.
Yeah, it's the career politicians. Jim Risch, 50 years.
Yeah. I mean,
Nancy
how long were the
Pelosi,
Clintons
57.
Clinton,
Clintons, you had
collectively. He was governor of Arkansas.
Governor of Arkansas, First Lady of
80s.
Arkansas in the 80s.
Yeah.
She's got this. Get on it. But absolutely, and depending on how far you take that back, there are an awful lot of people, the Bill Clinton crime establishment.
Oh, Jesus.
Because Arkansas was one of those locations
The cocaine. Yeah.
That was CIA insertion point for cocaine, supposedly.
Yes, it was. That was the whole American-made movie.
Yeah.
That Tom Cruise movie.
Yeah. You're flying it in. Arkansas is your landing point. From there, the state troopers got it taken care of.
Yep. Well, his brother went to prison in Arkansas, didn't he? Roger Clinton.
Wouldn't surprise me.
He did. He went to prison for cocaine.
He's one of the few that actually got caught in the family.
Something. I don't know. Well, that just makes me wonder, how the fuck did he not get him off?
If your brother's governor and you go to prison for trafficking cocaine, what'd you screw up?
Yeah, it's like, look, Roger, I'm afraid the definition of the word is not real good right now. I'm afraid I'm not going to be able to get you out of this one there, brothers. Do your time. You know, like...
Just take one for the family, bro.
Just take one for the team there, champ.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
Absolutely, you know.
this is horrible. Like, how the fuck... I seriously want to know how he went to prison.
It's an interesting story.
Well,
it
was he
would
a
have to be.
plant? Like, you know? Like, my brain starts going like, wait, because you just nailed it. Your brother's the governor, and you went to prison in the state that your brother's the governor of?
Right.
Like, you know, at least it wasn't California. Like, you know, like that. Well, you know, they got
It's
him
like
good.
Roger.
No, old Arnold.
Oh yeah, Arnold.
Well, because they loved him in California.
yeah.
Oh, the people here, they love me here in California, you know, like the whole thing. But they got him good with that whole, he was banging the housekeeper and had a baby with her.
Yeah.
I don't know about all that.
Well,
He pissed somebody off, I think, and they, you know, because you know how they get these people
he was
out.
married to a Kennedy.
Exactly. That's,
You know, how are you married to a Kennedy and you still get in trouble politically?
Thank you, because Ted Kennedy killed a woman
And, you know, still spend the next 60 years in office.
in office.
Yeah.
Drunk driving killed a woman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, so, I mean, there's a lot of this going on.
Yeah.
And matter of fact, me talking about this issue with you right now. Well, it's Idaho, so chances are I'm going to be able to get away with it. But,
right?
you know, but if I were to have said these same things in a political venue in Southern California or Connecticut or
Oh,
Massachusetts,
no, yeah, you'd be
you know, I'd be pushing up daisies tomorrow.
more than likely.
Yeah, yeah.
Seriously.
But
That's real. That old money, these old money
oh, they don't
families,
play games. They don't play games.
No, they
No,
will
they
fucking
don't.
kill you.
Yeah.
And they don't care.
No, they don't.
You know why? Because you're not the first.
No.
You know what I'm saying?
And I wouldn't be the last either.
Exactly.
You know,
They've been doing it
that's
for
the way they
years.
do business. You
Yeah.
know.
It's like, you ever seen that Netflix show Ozark?
No, I haven't.
Oh, you should watch it. It's so good. Like, remember Ozark?
Yes.
Oh, it's so good, dude. It's exactly this.
Right.
What we're talking about. What did you find?
So believe it or not, combined only 36.
Right. That's a lot, but I
It
said
is a
combined
lot.
too because he was governor and then he
Bill
was
he was Attorney General of Arkansas starting
before governor.
77.
Got it.
77 to 79.
Well, Attorney
That's right, 'cause
General's
they're
appointment.
attorneys.
No.
That's
That's a
So
state
if you're
level
talking-
elected
you're
office.
talking- If you're talking in office, it was 1979.
Okay.
So take away 2 years. So 34 years. Now the same can be said for Hillary, just because like I didn't count her like they counted the first lady.
No, not at all. That was 8
But
years.
Right.
United States Senator starting
For 8 years.
2001.
And then appointee as Secretary of State for 4 years. And
Right. So she's a senator for 8 years and Secretary of State for 4?
yeah.
Right? Well, you know, you want to hear what one of the crazy I gotta throw one in here while you're
Okay.
So, you know, John F. Kennedy Jr.
Yeah.
was going to be running for that seat that
Yeah.
she got in New York. And then he died.
And then he crashed his plane somehow.
Yeah.
Miraculously.
Well, here's the deal. I just read a deal on this. This is something I've actually known for a long, long, long time. They found a bomb on his plane, supposedly.
Okay.
Right? Him and Carolyn never got on the plane.
Right.
And then they got the plane up remotely
Right.
and detonated it
Right.
remotely.
Well, that also allowed them to disappear quietly
Right.
and get out of the
Well,
limelight, which helped them in a number of other ways.
Supposedly, and this is just one of the. Here's where this is a conspiracy theory because
Yeah.
I don't have proof. It's not a conspiracy theory if you have proof.
Right.
But this is theory, complete theory. Supposedly, he's going to be revealed next month.
Huh,
Coming
interesting.
up as still being alive. I thought he was alive the whole time,
Yeah.
personally. But that's just me, just because of what he said.
Well, I mean, a lot of those situations, something like that doesn't stay quiet. If you know somebody's been screwing with your plane, you
Right. Well, supposedly the military, they made a military op out of it because of who he is.
right,
And they took footage and sent it to the press
right,
of everything.
yeah.
So,
Well, they were aware enough of what's going on that they needed to make sure that he was publicly acknowledged as dead in order for him to successfully disappear.
So supposedly, and again, this is like this is some rabbit hole shit.
Yeah.
Supposedly it was Hillary Clinton that was behind it.
But that's one of those things. Who do you trust is the, better managed crime family? Do you trust the hillbilly crime family from Arkansas, or do you trust the Kennedys who have been running, the Rockefeller, the Kennedy-Rockefeller connection that's been running it since the 1918s?
Right. Since the booze.
Since
the
booze,
moonshining.
since the moonshining.
See, this
that's real old money right there.
That's real old money. Well, that's how they made theirs, was moonshining.
Yeah, moonshining, and then they invested in a Standard Oil with Rockefeller and, all the money. And then when they split up, Jack Kennedy, they did the whole thing. They got all of that in place. But the thing is if you're going to talk about who's running a better managed crime family, the Clintons or...
Oh, the Clintons, by far.
Well, I think the Kennedys still got them outclassed.
Well, of course. Outclassed, of course. But who's running a better crime family? The fucking Clintons have been doing a great job.
Well, they've been doing a great job, but the thing is everything they've been doing has been close enough to the surface.
Right. Because they got involved in some way further evil shit.
Right, they did. They got, it's like running drugs, even during Prohibition, a lot of people were going like, whatever, okay. Prostitution, whatever.
Yeah, nobody cared.
Nobody cared.
But you start getting into, human trafficking and pedophilia and the Wiener laptop. Yeah. And, dude.
Yeah, but so you're looking at...
Frazzle drip.
Yeah, but you're looking at different kinds of criminal activity that they got themselves connected to.
I mean, they're all criminals.
Yeah, they're all criminals.
We both know that.
It's just whether or not you find it acceptable.
Right.
So it's like one of those things. You go ahead and decriminalize, you deschedule the Controlled Substance Act.
Yeah.
An awful lot of the money that they made back 30 years ago, but they got their money now.
Yeah, they've got it.
They don't care. A lot of them are ready to see it legalized. That way they can invest in, the marijuana dispensaries now.
Dude, you know how much money Colorado made after they legalized?
Right. If you made money selling drugs, back when it was illegal,
Think about how much money you can make now with a dispensary.
Right. Seriously. With it being legal.
And it's legal.
Yeah, and it's legal.
Yeah.
You no longer have to run under the table. You no longer have to pay your runners.
Right.
The risk is gone now.
You
lose a little bit of market share because people are doing the home grow, but they were doing the home grow before anyway.
Yeah.
And the ones that are going to be hurt are organizations like Brother Speed and the Hells Angels, who have been cooking meth for the past 40 years. You deschedule meth and let everybody buy Ritalin off the shelf.
Right.
They got to find some other income source.
Yeah, you're right.
But you go in and you deschedule it, it completely changes the landscape of the cartels and the organized crime organizations, because they got to completely reevaluate. And a lot of them are probably in a situation where they can straight up go legit.
Probably.
You take a look at, I realize it's fiction, but The Sopranos.
Right.
Tony was running a crime, outfit until he finally said, you know what? I got enough money right now, I can invest and go legit and never have to worry about being arrested again.
Right.
They're at that situation right now for an awful lot of them.
That'd be smart.
Just go ahead. You made yours. Legalize it. Invest in it legally now.
You're not wrong. Joe, this has been awesome. Seriously. So, tell everybody, when's the election? November?
Okay, the election is November 3rd.
Okay.
I am running Congressional District 1. That is the western side of the state. Basically, the entire panhandle, clear on down to about Gem County. Then it does a lot of weird zigzag stuff right through the center of Boise, down Cloverdale. That's all Congressional District 1. I'm running against our Republican incumbent, Russ Fulcher. Our Democrat challenger is Rudy Soto. Okay, but that election is November 3rd.
Okay.
We got a couple debates coming up.
Where can people see those?
Well, one is the NPR debate. They actually let me in on that one.
Nice.
League of Women Voters went and assessed all of the available candidates. So all three of us will be on stage for the NPR debates hosted by the League of Women Voters. And
when is that also?
we will be recording it on the 5th. As to when they
Of
actually
October?
air it
Okay.
after, they put all of the answers together. Because they're doing it in a weird format because they can't put us all on stage because of social distancing.
Oh, God.
So what'll end up happening is I go in, I sit down, they read me the questions, I answer the questions.
Are you on a Zoom meeting?
Well, they will actually record it in the studio, so it's not a Zoom meeting.
Okay.
But
That was my social distancing.
no,
Because
but-
we're socially distancing right now.
yeah, we got the 6 feet between us.
Is there?
Pretty close.
We're in a 6-foot triangle right now.
Right? But they'll bring me in, they'll sit me down, or, put me behind the podium or however they want to do the presentation. The MC will go ahead and read me the questions. I'll have my 2 minutes or whatever to answer the questions. Then I'm done. I leave. The other candidate comes in, reads the questions, answer the questions, and then they take it all and splice it together so that, candidate
looks
1,
coherent.
2, so the three of us all have our answer to the question. And they're trying to record them all on the same day so that if news changes, like it does, like the Amy
Right.
Barrett issue,
Yeah.
if by October 5th she's actually elected, we'll actually be able to discuss, how we feel about the Amy Barrett election, whether from a Democrat, Libertarian, or Republican
she's
perspective.
totally in.
Yeah, she is.
Totally in.
She's totally in. It's going to
for her.
happen, and it's going to happen it's going to happen before the election.
Yeah, for sure.
Well,
Hey, a lot of them dudes are going to eat their words now.
Well, but the thing is an awful lot of the Democrat response to Amy Barrett is purely political.
Exactly.
And it shows.
Exactly. That's what I mean, too.
You go back and you take a look at her confirmation hearings for 7th Appellate Court, which she was appointed to 2 years ago. And you listen to her answers.
Yeah.
Okay, she is a conservative justice. Now, as far as a conservative justice, what that means is everything that the Supreme Court has ruled on over the past 233 years of its existence,
Yeah.
okay, she will continue to stick to that. Okay? Roe versus Wade, they're all scared to death that she's going to overturn.
Right.
That's established case law to her.
Right.
It's no longer debatable.
Right. She's just going to uphold it.
She's going to uphold it because that is established Supreme Court precedents for 40 years now.
Hey, at least you know what you're going to get.
So everything, essentially everything that RBG voted for,
Yeah.
she's going to continue to uphold because RBG established Supreme Court precedents.
So they established precedent with it.
Yeah.
And she's a conservative
and
that's
she's
gonna
just
going to
hold it.
That's cool.
That says, you know what? American culture, American society has had this as established legal precedents for 40 years. I'm not going to change it on any of my appellate courts.
That's cool.
You listen to her and you listen to the way she presents herself about all of those issues. And it's like half the things that they're scared of her doing,
She's not going to fuck with.
she's not going to screw with.
Right.
She's pro Second Amendment. Well, we got Second Amendment pretty well established. That is Supreme Court precedents for, last 20, 30 years.
Right.
Now, if they really, really are worried about it, okay, this is where the checks and balances come in.
Right.
Okay. They need to make sure that they have a Congress that doesn't write any new legislation
Right.
that creates a potential contentious issue with any of the previous constitutional rulings.
Yes. Okay.
And that's the one thing I got a problem with Amy Barrett right now. I have no idea where she stands on the Patriot Act.
Yeah, no doubt.
I know where Kavanaugh stands on it.
Where's his stance? What's Kavanaugh's stance? Is he against it?
No, Kavanaugh is very much for it.
He's for it?
He's for it, 100% for it.
Wow.
He thinks it's reasonable legislation should be adopted, which means anytime that the U.S. is in a state of emergency, believe it or not, we still have a state of emergency from 1979.
Jesus Christ.
Yes.
What's going to go on
So
now?
if the Patriot Act is upheld as constitutional during a national crisis, which we've had one since 1979, the Iranian crisis.
Yeah. Argo.
Literally, Jimmy Carter wrote this. If it's upheld as constitutional during a national crisis, which Kavanaugh supports,
Wow.
and now if now Garouche won't. I don't think Roberts will. I don't think Amy Barrett, is going to make a ruling supporting it. And even if she does, I don't think there's enough conservatives who would support the Patriot Act in light of other things that have occurred over the last couple of years.
Right.
But literally, the Patriot Act is one of those deciding things. Another transition in the Supreme Court could create enough of a shift where you would have 5 Supreme Court justices that would be in support of the Patriot Act during a national crisis, of which we have 38 of right now. Right?
And a half.
Which essentially suspends the Bill of Rights.
Right.
Yeah, so if we actually get enough Supreme Court justices, and Amy Barrett isn't enough to shift the balance.
Not even close.
Yeah. But she's a step because we already got Kavanaugh in there right now. Yeah, so if they start moving towards that way and they actually get it weighted heavy enough before Patriot Act is shot down enough times in the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
Right now it's only been in place for about 20 years. It hasn't had that many challenges to it because neither Bush nor Obama created any situations for any challenges to the Patriot Act, although Trump, with his AG bar, has.
Yeah.
Okay. Black bagging protesters in Portland and Seattle was a challenge to the constitutionality of the Patriot Act, provided they actually did a catch. Their catch and release sort of makes it iffy. But AG Barr, especially with regards to Reinhold. Okay, Reinhold was the guy who shot the Patriot Prayer guy dead on the Portland streets a little bit ago.
Oh, yeah. Didn't he get shot? You're talking about the guy that shot the other guy?
Right.
And then the guy that did the shooting got shot?
Pappas was the guy who was shot. He's the Patriot Prayer guy.
Yeah.
Okay, Reinhold was the guy who shot him.
That's the guy, yeah.
Okay, AG Barr, William Barr, created a law enforcement operation to take down Reinhold. And basically it was extreme prejudice.
Oh, wow.
40 law enforcement officers emptied the firearms into him.
Wow.
Okay.
They weren't messing around.
No, they weren't. Now, the interesting thing about William Barr...
Hold on 1 second.
Clicking.
There we go.
Okay, so... One of the interesting things about AG Barr is this is actually his second time working as the Adjutant General of the United States.
Who was he under first time? Was it Bush Sr.?
He was actually, no, it was Bush Sr.
Bush Sr., okay.
Okay, reason why is because Janet Reno took over for him.
She took over for Clinton, right?
Yeah, she was under Clinton.
Yeah.
So Bush Sr., AG Barr. Now, the interesting thing about AG Barr is what he ordered for Reinhold was the extreme prejudice, was exactly the same thing he did previously for Randy Weaver at Ruby Ridge.
Yeah, you told me about that and something. I watched something about Ruby Ridge. What was his deal with Ruby Ridge? When was that? I forget. Like 91?
Okay, so that happened, I think it was 92, 93.
That was here in Idaho, too.
Yeah, that was here in Idaho, which is why it's of particular interest to Idaho. And why anyone from Idaho would support anyone who reappointed AG Barr, really needs to take a serious look at themselves, especially when it comes to when they'll take my gun from my cold dead hands.
Yeah.
Well, that's exactly what the ATF and the FBI under William Barr tried to do to Randy Weaver.
Right.
And literally supporting that is the ultimate in bootlicking.
What was that deal, though? What was his thing?
Randy Weaver was a separatist. Yeah,
didn't he hold somebody hostage or something?
Well, no, he didn't. Okay. Yeah, the whole scenario, and now there's some people who said that he held some of his family hostage. 1992. Okay, so AG Barr, he ordered the FBI and ATF operation. Now, what happened with Randy Weaver was approached by somebody from the ATF who was an undercover agent.
Wow. Okay.
And asked to modify. I don't know whether it's a shotgun or a rifle.
Oh, modify an assault weapon.
Well, just modify a weapon.
Just a weapon, period.
Just a weapon, period. Asked him to go in and modify it, and Randy modified it for him. Okay. Came in. He, after doing the modification, he handed it back to the ATF agent. The ATF agent went, filed, and Randy never showed up to court.
Wow.
3 times.
3 times, well, yeah.
Given 3 conflicting dates for his court appearance.
Yeah, so he didn't know when he was supposed to show up because
right.
he was given all of this different information as to when he was supposed to show up to court.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah, well, he didn't show up to court on the day where it was actually held because he didn't know which day it was. So the ATF and the FBI went out and cordoned off his area and put him under persistent surveillance. And in the process, they actually shot his wife in the face while she was carrying their child and killed his son.
What the fuck?
And this was done under William Barr's Department of Justice.
So he was running the DOJ.
Yes.
So he wasn't the AG then.
Well, the AG has management of the Department of Justice.
Oh, I see. Yeah, I follow you.
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean,
Yeah,
it's like.
His son was 14. They also killed the dog that was with the boy.
Yeah.
I got you. So he's basically the
An
head
FBI
of the DOJ.
shot the dog. William Barr was responsible for shooting a dog.
So how's William Barr responsible though?
He was the one who authorized the operation under the Department of Justice.
But does he run the FBI? It was the FBI that shot these people, correct?
U.S. Marshals.
It was a joint operation. You had
Right.
U.S. Marshals.
But who shot?
FBI.
Who shot?
It was an
who?
FBI sniper who
So
I
the
believe
FBI guy
actually
shot
It was the FBI sniper that shot.
So who's
the
responsible for the FBI?
That goes back to Department of Justice.
But who's giving the orders here? That's my question. Like you say, Barr's responsible, but who was giving the orders to shoot people?
Honestly, that's
my
a good question.
Because I get it. He's in
Yeah.
charge. Okay, fair enough. But there's people under him giving orders.
Yeah.
Right? So he's not directly responsible because he didn't pull the trigger for one and he didn't give the order for two. Or is that not accurate?
I'm not real familiar with exactly the way the chain of command went with that.
Okay.
But one of the other things you take a look at.
I just want to be clear because I don't know.
I completely understand that. But it's one of those things. He was responsible for that operation as
Right, so
the Attorney General.
he's the head of the thing.
Yeah, he's got to accept a certain amount of responsibility for what happened.
I don't disagree with
especially considering the time frame in which it happened.
Right.
Because some of those killings happened over a long period of time.
The Randy
Weaver's family, his wife, his son, during 11 days. Okay, at any time during that 11 days, as the Attorney General, William Barr could have stepped in and said, you know what, this has gone too far.
So he had the authority to do that.
Yes, he had the authority to do that. So his lack of action, resulting in the death of 2 over the 11-day standoff period, is one of those reasons why I hold him responsible for what happened at Ruby Ridge.
But does that fall under one of those things where it's like he's got people reporting to him? And does that make sense? You get where I'm going? It's like they could be feeding him a line of bullshit.
Well, yeah,
and he doesn't have a clue.
Absolutely.
Is that that's possible?
That was 92.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, here we are. It's 2020.
Sure.
And we have the exact same scenario, exact same situation, where a joint law enforcement operation is conducted
in Portland.
Yeah. With zero intention of taking the suspect alive.
And who's this? The guy that shot the preacher guy?
Yeah. Reinhold.
Yeah.
Now, I to a certain degree, I understand about that. Reason why is because he was an extremely dangerous criminal. He was caught on film having actually shot, another individual
he
at
straight
point
up
blank
murked
range.
a dude.
Yeah.
And the dude wasn't bothering him either, from what I understand. Right?
It's hard to say because I know the dude also cut loose with some pepper spray.
Yeah.
At approximately the exact same time he was shot. So I don't know whether or not, Reinhold was shooting him because he got sprayed with pepper spray or whether or not the pepper spray was discharged because Reinhold was pointing a gun at him.
Right.
The exact timing of that because of the videos that are available. But the thing is, you got 40 law enforcement guys up armored with guns,
Yeah.
They legitimately could have taken him and actually held him for trial. And they chose not to.
Yeah. Well, and that's what I'm saying. Like, who's in charge of the actual, in the field? You know what I mean? Because
Yeah, good question. Yeah.
You know, a lot of times, like, there's been situations here in Boise where, like, dude got shot at 86 times and they hit him 3 times. Remember that dude on the connector? Like, what was that? 17 years ago?
Yeah. Well,
remember
that was
high-speed
BPD. That was BPD
Yeah.
17 years ago.
Yeah. Well, I'm just saying. I'm just
17
saying,
years ago. The BPD from 17 years ago is not the BPD of today.
No, not at all. But I'm just
Yeah.
saying, like, there's someone
Yeah.
in the field in the chain
Yeah.
of command who's giving these orders of, like, hey, dude, shoot this motherfucker on sight. For instance.
Yeah.
Just again, like, I'm not defending either point.
I completely understand that. But one of the other things that we talk about an awful lot as far as issues is, of course, Waco.
Oh yeah, Waco was a
Okay.
shit show.
Waco was a shit show.
Completely.
Now, the irony of Waco is Janet Reno had been AG for less than 2 weeks when Waco went down.
Right.
Which means Bill Barr's fingerprints were all over the entire Department of Justice and
Right.
the way the Department of Justice handled things.
Right.
So literally, Waco was an echo of William Barr.
I get what you're saying, but
And-
who's in the DOJ when all this stuff's going down though too? Because
Yeah.
if you think about all the key players and all these events,
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of like the Warren Commission, if you will.
Yeah.
That's a great example of key players in all these events.
Yeah.
Because think about who was on that: Bush, Ford, Nixon, Hoover. Right.
Yeah.
Like, holy shit. So, like, there wasn't a conspiracy there?
Well, exactly.
You know what I mean? So that's why I asked that. Because,
You know, and like I said, you can't actually look, I look at it because he was a key player and he was in
Yeah.
a key position where he should have been held responsible for some of the things
well,
that
he's
happened.
got to have some responsibility.
he's gotta have some
As the head
responsibility.
of it.
Now, here's an extremely ironic situation. Reason why is because do you know who is in charge of the Senate Judiciary Committee as the chairman for both Ruby Ridge and Waco?
Pelosi.
Senator Joe Biden.
Oh, shit. Okay.
So Senator Joe Biden is responsible for Senate oversight of the Department of Justice, and the AG was responsible for oversight of William Barr for Ruby Ridge, as well as Janet Reno for Waco.
Wow. So you think Barr switched sides?
Don't think Barr switched sides.
No, I mean now.
Well, right now Barr's working for Trump.
Right, so he switched sides.
Well,
Trump used to be a Democrat.
Trump
Remember
used to
that?
be a Democrat, but the thing is he still accepted the job under a Republican.
Well, I know.
As a Republican.
And
Now-
they hate him too.
Well,
They all hate him.
they all hate him,
all hate him.
and that's legitimately so because he's screwing with the status quo.
He's screwing with their money.
Well, yeah, he is. I mean,
He really is.
yeah.
All their illegal money.
all of their legal, all of it. He's messing with all of it. Whether he's doing it by design or whether or not he's doing it just because
totally
he's.
by design.
Yeah, I don't know. I have a tendency to think that Trump is just self-interested enough that any
he was
incidental
self-interest-
damage that happens to anybody else is beyond him.
You know, one thing I always want people to think about, and I'll say this to you too, because I don't know if you've seen me write this before, but he's doing the job for free. What the fuck self-interest does he have? Why would someone want to take this much abuse?
Well, here's the thing.
For nothing.
And we've run into the problem before, okay? Yeah, he's doing the job for free. He's not accepting that $400,000 a year that's part of his presidential salary. He's turning around and donating it to, miscellaneous,
That's cool.
federal nonprofits, which $400,000 is
a lot of money.
Well, not for the nonprofits he donates it to.
Well, it's a lot of money to me.
Well, it's a lot of money to you. It's a lot of money to me.
Yeah.
It's a lot of money to most of the local nonprofits.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But when you donate $400,000 to the Red Cross of the United States, that's paltry. That's pennies.
Right. But
So
still,
a lot of it is where he decides to donate it and in which capacity.
I do.
Because there are some.
Honestly, I don't care if he gave it to fucking
Yeah.
Tony Soprano. But this is my point. Who on earth in their right mind, Joe, in their right mind, would take this much abuse daily for the last almost 4 years?
Okay, so
for free?
I got a question for you.
I'm just saying.
How
I
much?
wouldn't.
How much does he put in his pocket after he charges the Secret Service for rooms at Mar-a-Lago?
I don't know. Probably not a whole lot. He's got employees to pay. Do they stay at Mar-a-Lago? Do we know that?
The Secret Service stays at Mar-a-Lago when
How do
he
you know
goes
he doesn't
golfing down
comp
there.
He owns the place, right?
Yeah, I think I actually got to go in and take a look.
I would comp him if it was me. Dude, look, the guy was...
But it's federal money. It's federal money. It's not coming out of his pocket.
But the guy was a billionaire before he took office.
Well, that's interesting because somebody just finally got a hold of his tax returns for the last couple of years. Yeah.
Are they real?
I don't know. I don't know.
Because I know one thing, Rachel Maddow making ass out of herself on her little MSNBC show one night.
She does.
She pulled his tax records from whatever year it was, 2009 or something. He paid $33 million in taxes.
Yeah.
And she was like, the thing that made her make an ass out of herself about it was she was like, oh yeah, he should pay more. And it's like, dude, he paid $33 million in taxes. What do you mean he should pay more? Like, who are you, Rachel Maddow? I call her Rachel Maddow. I'm sorry. I don't like her. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, that's a personal thing. That's my opinion. But
one of the things is like we were talking about, $400,000. That's his presidential salary.
Yeah, and he gives it away.
And there's certain other things. We don't actually know what the internal workings are, whether he's comping or whether he's charging the federal government for the Secret Service stays at Mar-a-Lago.
See, these are things that I don't care about, though.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like he's got to have his people with him.
Well, yeah, and that's one of the other things is I think Trump's still actually paying his own personal security detail in addition to the Secret Service detail that he maintains.
You know why, don't you?
I wouldn't trust the Secret Service if I were him either.
You know. I don't know if you know this or not, and this is another one of those things like we don't have like I don't have a book to open up and show you.
Right.
But word on the street is there's been a minimum of 26 attempts on his life since he's been in. And I wouldn't doubt it, because I'm going to tell you one thing right now. Ronald Reagan sure was a fucking renegade until they put one in him.
Yeah.
Just saying. Saying.
I mean, that's the situation. But the thing is right now we have an awful lot of rogue elements right now that are running around.
That's what I'm saying.
These people aren't controlled.
No. Well, they are to a degree.
Well, they are to a degree.
But they're like free agents.
Yeah,
like
free agents.
Rogue agents is a good term.
We constantly talk about the lone wolves, with regards to alt-right terrorism.
Jason Bourne shit.
Yeah, you got people who show up, and do things, like we treat the guy down in Nevada who shot the police officers,
Oh, yeah.
He's a rogue. We know there were things that influenced his decision to do that.
Yeah, MK Ultra.
Yeah, MK Ultra, or just
I don't know.
The fact that he'd had too much meth at some point in his life.
There's that too.
There's a number of reasons why these people.
He was hanging out in Pahrump.
Yeah, there's a number of reasons why these people end up going off and doing these strange things. You had the office shooting down in L.A. Where there was a radicalized woman. Well, this wasn't right wing. This was an Islamic thing.
No, I mean a shooting.
But
because a lot of these shootings, there's a lot of weird, really highly suspect information coming out, like the Vegas one.
Yeah.
And a lot of it, if you subscribe to the theory of it's like, they're trying to prep us up for taking our guns.
Well, but the thing is the people that end up taking the fall for most of these things are supposedly pro-gun individuals. You don't see anybody showing up.
That's how the media reports
you got 2 or 3 that have been reported as being anti-gun who show up with guns, for a mass shooting.
Which makes no sense.
Right.
They're anti-gun, but they went and shot a bunch of people.
Yeah. And it's like...
Well, that's why I question stuff.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah.
Because it's like...
Absolutely,
it's like you're going to tell me, like... Well, yeah, so the guy that doesn't like pot had, 88 milligrams of THC in his system at the time of his death, and so we believe that it was the marijuana that killed him. Like, what, dude? He didn't smoke pot. I've known that dude for 30 years. What the fuck you talking about?
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
but a lot of these things, there's suspicious circumstances that go on, and you start going, well, come on, dude, I know you're holding something back from the investigation. What is it you're holding back from the investigation?
Right.
That's
it.
Where's the originate for this? Where, what's going on? Now, some of them, you start taking a look at what's going on with, back when we were attending school, 5 years ago or however, centuries ago it was, the kids in school shootings. Most of those kids were already listed as emotionally unstable or psychologically unstable.
So they were perfect fall guys.
They were perfect fall guys. They just went in and picked them up after, they stole mom's gun and went and shot up the school.
Right? Or, after they gave him the gun to go shoot the school.
Or something,
See,
but
I think that way when I hear that stuff. I don't know.
yeah, the thing is you start taking a look at that, and some of these people have previous histories.
Right.
Like they've actually gone to social services or they've talked to somebody and said, I am a danger to myself and others. I know this. I need somebody to lock me up until I'm better.
Right.
In at least like 3 out of every 4 cases. They've gone looking for help before this situation, before they ended up in the situation where they're now guilty of murder.
Right.
Okay, and either because social services or medical health care or something else in the process failed them, they were left in the public, unattended, long enough to become the danger that they said they were going to be. Yeah, so some of these, I don't think it's programming as much as just a failed healthcare system.
Sure.
Where the situation was created that caused the problem. Now,
Well, a lot of the healthcare stuff is like they just put Band-Aids on things.
Well, yeah. And that's one of the reasons.
I mean?
Yeah. They put Band-Aids on it.
Instead of it's like we started this off with the root cause of trauma.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, here's a Band-Aid, have some vodka.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
literally.
It's like, sorry you suffer from ADHD. Here's some Ritalin.
Yeah, here's some cocaine.
Right.
Have fun with this.
Right.
We put some speed in it too. I was a Ritalin
just to
kid.
help you, just to help you pay attention.
Right.
But
I was a Ritalin kid, so I know firsthand.
Yeah.
That shit is gnarly. Well,
I got things done.
Yeah, I did too. I still do, but I'm hardwired that way.
Yeah.
They started me on that shit when I was 4. Dexedrine was the first one.
Ooh.
And then I was 5 in kindergarten. And then it was Ritalin. So I'm hardwired that way.
It's been in your system now long enough that all the synapses are.
Well, I stopped taking it when I was 13.
Still, that's 8 years.
Yeah, I know. Oh,
Yeah.
trust me, I know. But I'm hardwired to just be the way I am.
Yeah.
Does that you know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
I'm just energy all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's just my hardwiring.
Yeah.
Dude, I wake up in the morning at 5 in the morning and I'm just up. You know what I mean? And we go to bed reasonably early, but I just wake up and I'm up, and then I'm up,
Mm-hmm.
and then it's finally I'm just
It just keeps going and going and going.
and going and going. Well, that's how.
And then you crash.
That's how I get so much shit done.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But then it's just then I'm just but I have a regular sleeping schedule.
Yeah.
But then it's just I get tired, and then
Mhm.
it's time to sleep. But I'm one of those people too, because with the fitness thing and the bodybuilding background and all that, I'm a functional eater, functional sleeper. It's I just do that shit because I have to.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Okay, I'm tired. I need to sleep.
Totally. So let's wrap this up because we've been talking for a minute. This is the
just a
longest.
bit.
This is the longest show that I've done.
Well,
actually, so
I'm
far.
glad I've been able to keep you entertained.
Yeah, me too. Well, it's just generally there's just certain rules of doing this format of keep it whatever.
Well, you got to keep it lively. You got to be engaged.
Yeah.
You got to have something to talk about. You need to spread the knowledge.
Totally. Well, it's not even me. It's you, the people that, I told you, it's the people I talk to that are spreading knowledge. I don't know shit. I just try to make people mad. That's my whole game. No, I'm kidding. But so you're running for the 1st District of Congress in Idaho.
Idaho's 1st Congressional District, Western
3rd
Idaho. November 3rd is the date of the election.
Yeah. We just totally did the.
Yeah, we did.
I got to start doing the German 3.
German 3.
Yeah. Well, you know what that one is, right?
Yeah, well, if you're British, you got this one too, which represents something else entirely.
I know.
Yeah, it's wait, which hand signals can I use and can I not use?
Well, we have to make O's like this now.
Yeah, which country am I in at this moment? Who am I going to offend by doing what I do?
Totally.
But it's one of the things I do is, my 3s, friends, family, community.
Nice.
Make things happen.
Nice, I like that. So
That's
we can go vote for you on November 3rd.
November 3rd, of course, early elections. Go ahead, get your ballot.
Cool.
You can
make
apply
sure
for
that
your
they
ballot.
don't throw it out with all the other ones.
Well, it's one of the things you can do here in the state of Idaho. They actually got ballot drop boxes.
Oh, cool.
So you can literally go to a place and drop it off where it will be picked up by a county clerk. Yeah, rather than through the United States Postal Service.
Awesome. You hear that, peeps?
Yeah, so, but go to idahovotes.gov. You can register. You can request your absentee ballot. You can get your ballot shipped to you. You can fill it out. You can take it to a drop box and drop it off.
Nice.
Zero contact if that's the way you want to do it.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that.
They're still going to open up the polls.
Good.
Canyon County is interesting. Reason why is because they have like 50 polling districts in Canyon County, and they shut it down to just 5.
Oh, that's going to be a nightmare.
Right? Especially when you look at it from the racial perspective, because Canyon County has the highest density of Latin community.
Yeah, it's true.
Here in the state of Idaho, which means that literally that could be attributed to Idaho's racism. You know, it's like, wait, it's like your largest minority community exists in this county, and you just shut down access to polling location. Yeah. But that's something Canyon County is going to have to work out with, you know, their constituency and figure out how they're going to correct that. But yeah, idahovotes.gov. Order your absentee ballot. Fill out your absentee ballot. Drop it in a drop box. You can do that. Show up at a polling station November 3rd. You can vote for me. Also vote for Joe Jorgensen. Okay, for those of you who don't know that are new to the Libertarian Party and the Libertarian platform, Joe Jorgensen is the Libertarian candidate for president. This is going to be the second time she's been on ballots in all 50 states.
Oh, wow, okay.
Yeah, she actually ran as the vice president candidate in 1996, and they actually got him on all 50 ballots back in 1996. So this is the second time she's been on all 50 ballots.
Cool.
Last time it was vice presidential candidate, 96. This time it's presidential candidate.
Good for
2020, yeah.
So there you have it, folks. So Joseph Evans, my guest tonight here on Sorry About Your Feelings in the Safe Space. Do you like the name?
Safe Space, it works.
It's perfect.
Yeah, it really is.
You know I'm just poking bears, right?
Yeah, I know, yeah.
Well, you know me, too. But anyway, so congressional candidate here in Idaho. Remember to go vote, people, November 3rd. You know, it's one of the rights that we have as Americans, and it's something that's very, very important. This is an important election. Hopefully, and honestly, thanks for coming. I hope you win. I really do.
Well, thank you.
I really do.
Well, that's part of you're giving me airtime here.
Exactly.
You know?
Well, I was interested in hearing what you had to say. Like, I'm not against anything you're saying. I'm really not. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
well, you sit down and break it down, and it is all reason. Nothing.
You sound reasonable.
There's no reason anybody should be objecting to anything I had to say tonight.
No.
You know, it makes sense. It's reasonable. It's a decent game plan.
I think it's reasonable, yeah.
You know, and it's not something that messes with the world order of things.
No.
You know,
but we can take care of ourselves here.
Yeah, we can. We are Idaho. We can take care of ourselves.
Exactly.
You know, we get
that.
rid of a lot of that legislation. Idaho is already set up to be independent. We can
Idaho
exist.
already thinks it's independent anyway. Just ask Channel 7 News.
This is session of Idaho.
Well, you know how we're connected to everything that happens on Channel 7 News.
Right.
It doesn't, like, dude, there could be like a jetliner get shot down in fucking Mongolia. And they're like, Idaho's connection. And you're like, how is Idaho connected to that? Well, the
Malaysia airliner went down.
Yeah. Well, the pilot one time was on a United Flight 793 in 1962 and flew over Boise on its way to Seattle. Like, they'll say shit like that on Channel 7 News. I swear to God.
Well, honestly, that's the problem with all of the news stations.
Yeah,
you
right.
watch CNN. You know, it happens in Minneapolis, Minnesota. You know, and they make it feel like it's happening in our backyard.
Right.
It's like,
well,
no,
you know, there's 30-foot flames
Minnesota.
behind him, but it's mostly peaceful. I'm just saying.
But it's happening in Minnesota.
Right, and then they're in Wisconsin, though.
Well, it's happening in. How far do you have to drive to get to Wisconsin?
From Minnesota?
Well,
probably
from
not
Idaho,
that far.
from Boise.
It's probably not that far. You just got to go through Montana and Wyoming, right?
When was the last time you drove through Montana?
Nobody did.
Along the long length.
Yeah, right? No one's ever done that, I don't think.
No, because usually you end up coming up through some other direction. I like going through Yellowstone before I go into Montana.
Right? Yeah, no kidding. It's pretty over there.
Yeah, it's pretty.
Like over through Victor.
Yeah.
And then like up to Jackson Hole.
Of course, as soon as Yellowstone blows up, it's going to be a completely different landscape over there.
Oh, I'm scared. Yellowstone's not blowing up. Joe, stop it. No, that's not happening. So
Okay, but yeah.
no, that's funny. Anyway, thanks for coming. Seriously, I really appreciate it. So remember that, everybody. The Libertarian candidate for Congress in District 1, Joseph Evans. Vote for. I would vote for you. Like, I haven't heard anything them other assholes have said that sounds good to me. So I'm just saying.
Well, I mean, yeah, you step back and you take a look at it, and you got one of them who's going, yeah, we need to give more power to the office of the president. He shouldn't have to wait for Congress to decide this, that, or the other.
What's the other guy saying?
The other guy says,
Are his
gun
feelings
control
hurt?
is an important thing.
Oh, Jesus, he's one of those guys.
Well, he's running on
Here-
the Democratic ticket.
here,
I'm
I got-
honestly surprised he waited as long to come out with that as he did.
I got gun control for you. My safety's on.
That's what it is,
Shouldn't it be gun safety?
Well, I mean,
We
really,
had to take that in school. Remember?
Well, but we also used to have gun safety in school.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. We
We
took
used to
gun
have
safety.
the ROTC firing range in the basement of,
Right.
Not Bora, but
We learned
Boise
how to
High-
shoot bows and arrows, and
Yeah.
we learned gun safety.
Yeah,
That's
you
like
learned how
basic
to hunt.
shit.
Because that's what we were even back then. An awful lot of Boise City residents were, subsistence hunters.
Right.
They learned a bow, they learned the gun. We go. It was a hunting safety course.
Yeah, hunter safety, exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
And we weren't fighting hunter safety. A lot of people actually took it because it was available.
Yeah, well, it's smart to take in a place like Idaho.
No, it is.
There's tons of hunting. The landscape and the beauty of this place. This place is awesome.
Well, it also helps, maintain your gun control when you go out shooting whistle pigs.
Oh yeah, that's always fun.
Yeah,
we
yeah.
just use BB guns. All right. Well, hey, so again, thanks for coming. This is Jimmy Rhodes signing off. Channel 99 Studio on the YouTube and all the other platforms that we have. There's other shows on the channel besides mine. Hit that subscribe button, like our videos, leave some comments, because that's the best way to help our channel out right now. And I'm sure I'll see all of you real soon. Love you. What was that?
Thank you.
Oh, yeah, and thanks to Tim Meyer, my producer, as always. He's one of my best friends and a great dude. And he'd probably punch me in the face if I didn't thank him. And I had to be reminded by my lovely assistant that I needed to do that. So that's how that works. Hey, until I see you again, party peeps, I'll see you again.